いて二度と無駄口叩けぬようにしてやる。
生きろ。
まだ言うか。人間の指図は受けぬ。
そなたは美しい。
Hello, all you weebs and movie lovers. Thanks for joining our panel today. We got our guest, green-haired anti-liberal, Tiff, Gal.
Hello.
Sorry, I totally cut you off.
I cut you off.
No, it's okay.
I'm so tired, so I apologize if I seem loopy, because I am.
She's putting in a lot of work on the internet.
It's a very busy Saturday. That's all I have to say.
Oh, yeah. Very busy in culture and movies, man. It's nice to have. I've been to the movies 5 times this year. Isn't that crazy?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, shit. I think I've been more times because I went to see Godzilla twice. Got back from this. Yeah, I've definitely seen more than that.
But like 2020, 2021, 2022, nobody saw movies.
Yeah.
It's crazy. Anyway, we got another hidden gem at the bottom. Kratos of Grados. I'm retarded. I can't speak. Well, welcome, buddy.
Yeah, it's great to be here. I'm excited to get into it.
Awesome. We Tiff's got a heart out, so let's just get into our first question. I want to ask all you guys, what was your first Studio Ghibli film, and who showed it to you?
You take it, Tiff.
Mononoke Hime, Princess Mononoke.
Ooh.
Yep. It was in English, so I'm a dubbed Studio Ghibli. Ghibli. It's Ghibli.
That was the other question. How do you pronounce? How do you mispronounce Studio Ghibli?
It's actually Ghibli if you're Japanese.
Ghibli. Okay.
Like J-I.
I like the way Kratos says it.
How do you say
it? I looked on Google and it said in English they pronounce it Ghibli, and in Japanese they pronounce it Ghibli.
Yeah. Yeah, so I could spell it out for you, and it would be in katakana, I believe.
Yeah. We were talking about it.
Yeah. But anyway, sorry. It was just on like cable essentially, and our parents let us watch it. I could say that my brother got me into it because he just molded me in his image. So the only reason I watch anime is because of him. Like, he wanted to be able to watch Dragon Ball Z, so I had to watch that with him so I could watch Sailor Moon.
Nice.
Yeah.
I had the same relationship with my cousin.
That was me and my sister. That's so weird.
I was just gonna say, that's fucking hilarious.
I love that. I used to watch like Strawberry Shortcake with her, and then we would watch what I wanted to watch.
Yeah, DBZ and Sailor Moon on Toonami was like brother sister sibling bonding time.
Yep.
Oh, I watched Sailor Moon alone. No shame.
So
judgment.
Only because it came on before Gundam, okay? And I liked it.
So for me, it was just on Toonami, Spirited Away, and there was, sorry if there's background noise, but yeah, it was just shown, and I picked up, and then I watched a whole bunch more a few years later.
Nice. Spirited Away is awesome.
My dad saw it when I was like a kid, and I was about 5 or 6, and when it finally came out on DVD, he was like super stoked to show it to me.
Spirited Away?
Yes.
So that was your first one then too?
That was my first one.
Nice.
Yeah. That's interesting. I always feel like that was everyone's first one.
Nope. My first one was Princess Mononoke. I fucking loved that movie.
That's, as you can tell, it's my favorite.
Sorry, I don't know if you. I have a sailor's mouth.
Oh, you can curse. You're good.
Probably should have beforehand.
Yeah, you're good. No worries.
So I don't know if this is a false memory, but I may have seen Kiki's Delivery Service as a rental from like my public library a few years before.
I've never finished. It's not
Yeah.
Oh, you didn't like that one? Really?
I've never been able to finish it. I fall asleep,
Whoa.
and I'm not tired. Like I can't. I don't know what it is about her, but I can't stand her.
Do you like Howl's Moving Castle?
Love Howl's Moving Castle.
Okay.
Sure, we'll get into
Movie.
Yeah, we'll get into this with our tier list. So
Yeah.
I guess what's your favorite one? Is it Princess Mononoke as well?
No, I'm pretty sure it's Howl's Moving Castle.
Whoa, okay, nice.
Like-
with the dub or the sub? Christian
Dub.
Bale? Yeah.
Christian Bale.
Yeah.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah.
That is my
Mhm.
pitch for getting girls to watch anime or anyone.
Yeah.
I always
Yeah.
say Howl's Moving Castle it's a girl movie. It's a
absolutely.
great girl movie,
Mhm.
and it's got Christian Bale. Fantastic.
That fucking voice. And he was the voice of the dad in the
Mhm.
Boy and the Heron for the
Yes.
dubbed.
Yeah.
And I was like, I feel like that's Christian Bale, but I'm not sure. Like he threw in kind of like an accent to it where it
Mhm.
wasn't, Batman.
Yeah.
Like Howl was.
Oh, that's funny. There's no point in the movie, and this might be getting too far into spoilers, but the dad definitely could have said the line, "Where is she?"
Mhm.
Call back to
Oh.
Batman.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
They should have done that. That would
That would have been cool. Anyway, sorry. That was a little distraction.
Man, I'm such a noober streamer. That is a clip I would totally have if I live streamed
Yeah.
regularly.
Yeah.
I would totally have that on hand. But
shit.
dude, big positive about Boy and the Heron.
Mhm.
The English dub voice acting is superb.
Mhm.
Do you know
his-
who voices the Heron?
Robert Pattinson.
That is insane.
It was
when I-
nuts.
He was so
It's crazy.
good.
Lethal. I let him know that I was about to go watch it after the full Aussie. And that's one thing that he said. He was just like, he's a great voice actor. I didn't even know that
Yep.
he was in it. And so I was like, I wonder, I was trying to listen because I don't like him.
Mhm.
I hated the
Yeah.
Twilight movies. So I can't recognize his voice. So I was just like, I have no idea who he is in this.
I'm pretty sure Zac Efron and Robert Pattinson have the same agent because they
Mhm.
both had the identical career paths where they put
Really?
a bunch of money on girl movies
Mhm.
and then they said, all right, we need to change your image.
Yeah.
And it's by getting ripped, being an inappropriate rated R comedy, and then you can do serious. And it's crazy how they've both shaken that.
Stigma.
Yeah, really.
Yeah.
He's a great actor. And hate him. We all hate him. Mark Hamill is probably one of the best voice actors of all time.
Yep. You just got to separate the art from the artist.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mark Hamill did a phenomenal job.
Oh, yeah. It was good.
So yeah, should we start ranking some of our
Sure.
films first, or should we get into The Boy and the Heron?
Up to you, Master and Commander.
What do you think,
got mine ready.
co-host Kratos?
I've got mine ready to go, so I can go quick.
All right, let's
And
do
I
it.
don't, because y'all like chatted about it while I was in the movie. So.
Yeah, sorry.
I read that afterwards. I'm like, yep, I'll figure it out. as we
So
go.
Fair
I'm gonna leave my Boy and the Heron ranking off until after we talk about it.
Yeah, we'll all do that.
Okay, so S tier for me, my favorite is always going to be Spirited Away, and then
Nice.
after that I've got Howl's Moving Castle, very close second. And
As an S as well.
yeah, after yeah. So disclaimer. So I go by a relative scale. So just because I put something in D doesn't mean it's a bad movie. It just means it's worse relative to the other stuff in this category. Another disclaimer is that this tier ranking, it's only including Studio Ghibli movies that were written and directed by Hayao Miyazaki, so we can compare apples to apples.
Makes sense.
Yep.
Okay. Moving on, Kiki's Delivery Service on A. Just because it's just a great story. It doesn't have as much of the fantastical elements as the other ones, but
it really doesn't feel like it was written by Miyazaki
Mhm.
because there's not enough fantasy. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? It's a very simple story. But this other movie was kind of similar. But yeah,
yeah.
Sorry.
Castle in the Sky next on A.
Which one?
I love the characters in that. Also, Mark Hamill is in that one.
Mm-hmm.
Playing the main antagonist. Then
Just like real life.
yeah. Princess Mononoke. The only thing that's hard or bringing that one down is that it drags on a little bit too much for me. Kind of meanders around towards the end, but in general, the world and the characters and the plot are all superb. Then My Neighbor Totoro. A lot of the plot around, especially the second half of the movie, is great, but it's a little bit less grand than the other ones, right?
Yeah.
Porco Rosso on B. Great story. And then Ponyo next on B. This one's brought down for me personally because it's hard to rewatch this because my young nephew watched it like 5 times a day for 2 years straight. And so it's just it's one of those things where
it's a kiddish one too.
It is. I like it. I do like it.
I only saw it
very
once.
Good. And then I've got Nausicaa on B after Ponyo. Again, that one is just kind of I like everything about it. It's kind of slow. And then on C, I've got Wind Rises. I haven't seen this one in a while, but from what I remember, it was very much a departure from everything else, where it was just the only fantastical elements were in dreams, and it was mostly just a character story about World War II. And it's good in its own right, but it's kind of like for all of the for all of the categories of which I would rank Miyazaki movies, fantastical elements and stuff like that, it's just losing points there. So yeah, that's what I got. You want to just
I screenshotted that, so we'll know your rankings here.
Cool.
I think this is pretty much like a good definitive like rankings. Like this is pretty solid.
And
then
there's like personal preference where
yeah,
it's hard for me to organize stuff on the rows themselves, but in general, like that's I wouldn't be dissatisfied with people moving stuff around.
No, I think this is like a correct rankings of all these films. I like to be more exaggerated. I like to separate what I think is really good from something that's just good. You know what I mean? I like to have more of a radical opinion, I guess, All
right, go for yours.
Pretty good. Do you want to go next, Tiff, or should I go?
I should go because I haven't seen all of these.
So you just want to put the ones you haven't seen and haven't seen?
Go for it.
Yeah. I can hardly see them, but
you can just tell me the name.
Awesome. I'm gonna put Kiki's in there because I haven't finished it. I feel like putting it as a D because I fell asleep.
If you don't like it, you don't like it. That's okay.
That works.
I think the ending of that movie is the best part of the movie, and so if you haven't seen that, it's probably fair.
Yeah,
and haven't seen.
I've tried. I'm gonna try now that I'm older. Like it was probably a decade ago that I tried the last time.
I think it's more enjoyable for children.
Yeah,
it really is a good kids movie. It's not like Totoro where it's the relationship that the kids have with the families that can be enjoyed by everyone. Kiki is a child growing up, so it is really relatable to watch as a kid. I understand if maybe adult wouldn't enjoy watching it, but as a kid, like the nostalgia hits the hardest with Kiki, in my opinion. So if an adult doesn't like it, I'm not gonna convince them to like it. because me and my cousin watched this when we were like 10. And we absolutely love it to this day. And I'll admit, purely because of nostalgia. So, haven't
Yeah.
seen or don't like?
If you haven't seen the ending, I'd
don't
say-
like.
Yeah.
Don't like.
You don't like
Run
it.
me.
You don't like it.
I haven't seen Totoro. I have it.
Really?
I have all of these films. I just sometimes I get like not sometimes. I basically have to be in a specific mood for certain movies.
Mhm.
And I just haven't gotten myself into
The best
the
thing
mood
about
for them.
Totoro is that it is about the children, but if you have a connection with like a son, daughter, cousin,
Yeah.
nephew, you are going to connect with the kids because it's just such a good, wholesome family movie.
Oh yeah, wholesome is
And
the right word.
And I know it's popular for a reason because it
Mhm.
is.
It's also the most
So-
marketable film.
Yeah, that's
It's the
that's very
Baby
true.
Yoda effect.
Yeah.
Wind Rises. I feel like I may have seen it. What is it about?
I haven't seen it.
Okay, so
Okay.
it's about a guy who in World War II in Japan who
Mhm.
wants to make planes, but he's not pro-war, so he's kind of conflicted, and
Mhm.
a lot of the rest of it's about like his love interest who he wants to marry, but she has like a terminal sickness,
Okay.
and that's pretty much it.
Okay. I don't
He has
think I've
some-
seen it then.
he has
It's
some-
not clicking for me.
Yeah, like he has some dreams about like flying some fantastical things, but yeah, that's it.
Okay. What are the other ones? I've
Howl's
seen
Moving Castle.
Yeah, that one definitely can go up to S tier with Spirited Away next, and then Princess Mononoke. All three are S tier for me.
Spirited Away, S tier.
Yep.
Where's Castle in the Sky go?
B.
B. Oh,
I don't
okay.
have
Oh,
any
wow.
rewatchability of it. I saw it once. Same with Nausicaa.
Wow.
If there's no rewatchability, I can't really give it an A or an S. So my list is going to be pretty simple here, guys. Castle in the Sky. Well,
So
I really liked that in comparison to Nausicaa.
there's one part of Castle in the Sky that gives me goosebumps every time, and it's when it's like close towards the beginning of the movie, and it's when the wife character basically tells the main male protagonist to like man up and go save the girl.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's up to you to protect her. You got to go do this.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I'm like, oh man, such a strong message.
That is good.
Go
Yeah.
ahead.
Maybe
But she just
you know
delivers
what?
it so good.
Bump
Mhm.
that up to an A because I know that I like felt some type of way with it. It was just I only watched it once.
Don't
I
let me
think-
influence you.
No, I'm
no,
not.
I
Before you
like
even
your
said
ranking
that.
so far. It's
Yeah,
good.
it's good so far.
And then Nausicaa, like it was all right, but it's a B for me because
B.
I don't care to rewatch it. I don't need to rewatch it. Yeah.
The ending was weird.
Yeah.
The ending is
Yeah.
really, really weird.
Lots of-
man.
You got
Huh?
Porco and Ponyo.
I haven't seen Porco. That was the other one that I hadn't seen.
Okay.
And I feel like people
Ponyo.
will yell at me for that, but and then Ponyo, you can probably put that in front of Nausicaa.
Okay. Very nice.
Yeah.
Very nice.
Because I know I liked it. It was all right.
Mm.
Like it was good. I liked it more than I liked Nausicaa. So yeah, that's my simple list right there.
I like it. We can see your opinions clearly.
Yeah.
All right, then I'll do mine real quick. All right.
Yeah,
so-
not too far off from mine either. I think the only
Yeah.
deviation really was like Kiki's. You had that lower, but everything else was
Well,
about
yeah.
in the same spots.
Okay. So
And A and S tiers for me are basically like they're really good movies, but
Oh yeah.
yeah,
S just stands out more. So yeah.
for sure. I'm gonna put Kiki S and everything else D tier. Just kidding.
I was like, no, you're not. You fucking troll.
Now I do. So my best friend actually, Kiki's is his favorite movie. Favorite movie
Really?
by far because
Nice.
of the messages in it. So
Yeah.
I'm not like, it's not a unheard of opinion. That's what I'm saying.
It is so good because it just, yeah. Maybe
It's like
another video.
Yeah, if you put more emphasis on like character development, I think that one is pretty high up.
It balances like the main character being a girl and like not emasculating the love interest, best friend
yeah.
interest. You know, he's such an interesting, like his weakness of just being a normal person, but he's so brave at the same time. Like, I just love how everyone is respected in that film.
Oh yeah.
So good. So my favorite movie is Princess Mononoke as well. It was probably like the fourth or fifth movie that I saw. My second
Really?
one, yeah.
Wow.
I it was one of the later ones that I saw.
Isn't this
And
the first one that he
first-
did?
No, this I can never say the name of this. The Wind's Gone, the
Nausicaa.
Nausicaa
Nausicaa,
Valley
yeah.
of the Wind.
That's the first one.
Really?
Hmm.
I thought that was more recent. Interesting. Okay. Sorry.
It's
I
either more
interrupted.
recent or first because it definitely doesn't have the Ghibli formula added to
Yeah.
it. Like it's just a movie.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So Princess Mononoke S tier. It's my favorite. Spirited Away, obviously S tier. Castle in the Sky was the second movie that I saw, and I loved it, and I want to put it in S tier, but I don't like putting more than 2 or 1 in S tier. Like I need to have that separation. But
Makes sense.
personally, I love Castle in the Sky, and it's unfortunate that I have to put it lower.
That's valid.
You know what I mean?
Okay,
Yeah.
yeah. I love pretty much all of these movies.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so that's kind of what I was saying before the stream was like, if you're just comparing Miyazaki movies to each other, then it'll be like this. But if this was a ranking of like all anime movies or all movies in general, then I'd have probably like 90% of these in S, and then a lot of other stuff would be down lower. So it's just kind of.
I have no problem just like making those distinctions. It's just this hurts the most. I swear, I love that movie.
It is painful sometimes. You gotta.
What's funny is like I can't even think of other anime. Well, okay, there's one. Do you guys watch Card Captors or Card Captor Sakura?
Oh yeah.
I
mean, I know of it.
The film that like ends it because like the 2 seasons of the show like don't really end, and then the last film kind of wraps it up in a nice little bow. Sorry, that was a distraction. But you said other anime films, and I'm like, I don't even know any other anime films. It's just studio.
A lot of good animation, but that's another question that we were gonna ask. I wanted to talk like what makes Studio Ghibli so different from anime, if not just special. So like, what makes them so different?
To interject on, or I guess to interrupt your ranking, for one, traditionally when I think of the word anime, I'm thinking of a show,
right?
And then you have OVAs, so like the short films that are usually at the end of like specials, and then anime movies specifically. So that's one thing. But then what sets these apart is like you have anime as an entire category, and anime has as many subgenres as we have genres in the West, if not more.
Yep.
And like most of them are of higher quality than what we get out here. And so within all of that, Miyazaki's special sauce that he adds, I think, is what makes all the difference.
Yes.
And Studio Ghibli knows that, and that's something that
the boy in the Heron knows that too. That's a lot of big subliminal messaging.
Yeah, there's something.
I feel like also the animation does set itself apart from like regular anime.
Yeah.
Focus on hand drawn.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, even they're digital. Like now, it's still digital now, but they mimic the old hand.
Yeah.
Really, really well.
Yep.
Also, another thing is that Miyazaki doesn't like being called anime. Like in interviews, he said, "I don't do anime. Don't call my work anime."
I think is
I think that's fair. I think he's using a certain art style as a medium for his storytelling, so I wouldn't disagree with that.
Yep.
What was cool about the theater, Alamo, they always do they don't do commercials like standard commercials. It's focused on the movie that you're about to watch. So like when I watched Godzilla, it was just all these weird like YouTube videos, like crazy analyses of Godzilla, or like a freaking 90s or 80s commercial about Godzilla in Manila and stuff. Like it was hilarious. And so for this, they had parts of the documentary for, I can't remember what it's called, something dreams and something. Yeah. And one, you could just tell he loves what he does, and that's why I feel like this isn't his last movie.
Every time he comes out of retirement, it's like it's his last movie. They did that with Ponyo. They did that with Winds Rising. I don't believe it.
Yeah.
No, I think they even confirmed that
recently.
Originally this was supposed to be, but then I think he's already confirmed he's going to do another one.
And he's
Real
also
quick.
Japanese. I don't know how to quit. So
Hail Static, thanks for lurking, buddy.
Hey.
Good to see you in the chat.
So the way this is going,
real quick, I think the big thing that why he doesn't like to be called anime is because I think he's aware that sequels are inherently bad. Most movies don't, like most sequels to movies aren't good. So that's why all his films are so long, because he knows I can't do a sequel. I can't do a part 2 because doing sequels is giving up. That's how a lot of like writers feel. So that's why a lot of his movies are long and dragged out, because he doesn't want to do sequels. He doesn't want to be anime. He wants it to just be a film.
Yeah, I
and that's
appreciate
the
that he
biggest
does
problem. Yeah, I do too. But that's the biggest problem with The Boy and the Heron, is that it refuses to do a sequel when I think it should. So let me just wrap up my rankings real quick, and then we'll talk about The Boy and the Heron.
Yeah, we'll get into it.
I'm putting this there. I liked it, but I don't remember it well. I'm gonna put this in B. I did not like Ponyo.
So Porco Rosso is Casablanca with the guy with the pig face, basically.
Yeah. I like this one a lot. House Moving Castle is a classic. Totoro's a classic. So those are my rankings.
Okay. Yeah, I think that we're all pretty much on the same page when it comes to our opinions on these. I think that's good to establish.
We all respect the classics. We all have our favorite, right?
Yeah.
So that is all good. And so, first things first, I like slow burns in movies, especially when you like the characters. And everyone in The Boy and all the characters, I think, were really good. I related to a lot of them. I thought they were well designed. I liked the first half of the movie, but so it's like a mystery movie. The first hour and a half is a good mystery movie, and I enjoyed it. But once the movie is already over, it introduces so much crap at the end. And then there's the controversial ending. So just try to not think about the end part of the movie. Just the first hour and a half before he gets to the castle. What were your initial thoughts on the movie?
Okay,
were you bored, enjoying it? Sorry, yeah.
First of all, did either of you? This is an important point for me, because did either of you have people in the theater that were laughing or giggling at inappropriate times?
Yes.
No.
You didn't have that? Okay, so I think there's like 2 or 3 like legitimately funny moments in the movie, but like there was people laughing, and I'll get to why this is important. There's people laughing at like right before. Sorry, I'm jumping ahead, but this is important to talk about for the first part of the movie too. So like when the grannies showed up, people were just laughing at that, like, and I get it, they look kind of funny.
Yeah.
So that's a little forgivable.
Them going through the luggage, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
That was funny.
But there's other parts where like when the pelican that was burned, like right before that, people were giggling, like they were expecting it. They were expecting a laughter cue in that moment, or
weird.
In the moment where
weird spots.
Yeah, like the part where towards the end where he's poking the tower and he's like nudging it a little bit, right? And some people that might come off as like quirky behavior, I guess. but like,
Yeah.
you know, so I think what's causing that is my biggest problem with the movie is that there's way too much subtext that's up to viewer interpretation.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
this, with the silent protagonist, with a lot of unclear motivations of characters, and like flip-flopping motivations.
But it doesn't matter what you perceive as the motives and the actions. It all
Yep.
doesn't matter at the end. Like, you know what I mean? It doesn't matter if you liked the motives or not. That's what was
I
disappointing.
have a theory for at least what could make the ending make sense, but again, that's like, it's my interpretation of the ending to make it make sense. Whereas, so my biggest problem with the movie is that it doesn't actually tell you what the resolution is.
Was.
Yeah, like what's the point?
It's a very throwaway.
Yes, it
And
threw it all away.
Yeah.
And
so,
I
like,
didn't mind it, but sorry, yeah, go ahead.
well, there's a difference with something like Inception, where at the end of it, the top is spinning and it cuts to black, right?
And it kind of looks like it's about to fall.
Yeah.
But it doesn't.
That's an
Yeah.
ambiguous like A or B ending. But
Yep.
with this one, it's like
It's definitive. It's an ending.
yeah, but it's like, you know,
It's-
you have any number of things that you could like fill in motives for in this movie. But yeah, I think that's my biggest problem, and I have stuff that I really like about the movie.
Yeah. So, but before it gets into all that stuff, like the art was beautiful.
Agreed.
Classic.
Was your curiosity like perked through the
Yeah.
first hour? Like, oh,
And
this
that-
is
yes.
interesting. What's happening? No, not. You're bored.
Well,
It was.
there was parts of it, but that goes into being a negative, and
yes. Yes. Everything positive that you have to say about the first hour and a half turns into a negative by the end of the movie.
So this
Yeah.
is kind of funny. I liked the end of the movie more than the first hour and a half.
Wow.
I can make an argument for that too, because
Uh-huh.
so it takes an hour for him to even start to get
Doing
into the world, right? Compare that to Spirited Away, where like
The entire time I was doing that. Sorry.
yeah,
I was just
but
like,
and maybe it's not fair, and maybe it's because we went into that with such a high bar, expecting something.
A
Yeah.
good comparison is Princess Mononoke, because that is a drag. That is a long movie.
In the second half, I think, but even in the beginning, it's like when the demon shows up, it's like
action.
you're immediately into it. You're like, what's going on
Yes.
in this world? There's
But-
stuff happening.
the slow parts add to the world. Like, we understand the village,
Builds
we
it up,
understand the industrialized city, we understand the forest and the spirits, and
Mhm.
there's so much context that's brought in all in at the end.
Yeah.
Where
Yeah.
everything that's introduced doesn't matter.
So, the thing about it being slow in the beginning, like again, comparing it to Spirited Away, where she's in the car and then almost immediately, so you get some character development right at the beginning, but almost immediately they're like driving down this path. She's like, what are those things on the side of the road? We're at this dead stop.
Mhm.
What's this building? And they go inside, and it's like, you're immediately just like drawn into this world.
Yeah.
Whereas with this one, it's like, I don't know when or if anything is going to get interesting.
Well, because you're introduced to this world and you're like, ooh, what's this world? And then he slaps your hand and says, no, you're not supposed
Yeah.
to like this world. It's bad. There's a creator that's controlling and torturing everybody. And you're like,
Mhm.
but I like the parakeets.
Mhm.
And every other, I've tried to listen. Dude, they were great. I was watching so many other people's reviews, especially more progressive people's like
Mhm.
interpretations of it. They all like hate the parrots, hate the parakeets. They're like the definitive of evil and destruction. And I'm just like, no, I think the king was just looking after himself. You know what I mean?
His kingdom, like him and his people in his kingdom, and he was wanting the best for them.
I have an
yes.
interesting take on the parakeets.
Let's hear it.
That's well, let's save that for second half. I did,
Okay.
but I did
Yeah.
like the character design. I thought they were very memorable, and that's
Mhm.
another thing that I think is wasted. There's a lot of really good characters and
Yeah.
character designs that were wasted. I think just not utilized.
So in the beginning, for me, like one of the first things I noticed was when he's running to the hospital,
Mhm.
all of the other characters are very wispy.
Yeah,
They're spirits.
Yeah.
it's
like,
like It's like in the moment you're not paying attention to any of that. Everything is just
Right,
flashing
like you're
by.
not
Yeah.
seeing those details, like
Yeah,
from
that's
his eyes.
That was an
And I
amazing
think
start to the movie. I thought it was
Yeah.
great
that's
art design.
But
but
then it
that
just
oh yeah. That
died.
symbolism is really foreshadowing the bad ending
Yes.
though, because
Yeah.
it's him as a kid. So okay, let's establish the formula that Miyazaki, sorry,
Mhm.
not Nintendo.
Yeah,
I'm really
whatever.
bad with Japanese names.
All good.
Go
The
on.
Ghibli formula is there is the tradition, there's the spirit world,
Mhm.
right? That is forgotten by the adults. And it is supposed to be capitalism, but he doesn't like attack it's not propaganda. It's the
Yeah.
adults have their jobs, they need
Right.
to make money,
Responsibility.
they have responsibilities, right? So the adults lose their inner child and they forget tradition, they forget the spirits, they forget the past.
Mhm.
And then it's always a child that is in between the two worlds, and they don't like to be in the real world with their parents, and then they discover the spirit world, and by the end there's always this respect, like, hey, welcome to the spirit world, thank you for your like appreciating us, but you need to go home, you need to
Mhm.
go to the real world, and the two worlds always coexist,
Yeah.
and there's a balance.
Yeah.
His endings always have a balance to them, and this one, it's so there's a lot of symbolism that Maito is, he's focusing on, air quotes, what doesn't matter. He's focusing on fantasy. And as he, air quote, matures, but there really is no sign of him maturing, at the end, he just randomly says, oh, I need to go to the real world. I need to accept reality. Time to go back to Tokyo. Like, all that
Well,
really was symbolized in the beginning as well.
I didn't even really
I got a
see
different take.
him
Go ahead.
as sorry. Like I don't see a story arc for him. In the beginning, like his mom dies and he's
No.
very stoic
Yeah.
after that. And his decisions are very traditional. Like I don't see him as a child in the beginning because his mom died and he's in the situation that he's in, he's accepting of it. And that's just him throughout the movie for me.
Yeah.
But there's just, and so you know how I swap the end with y'all's, like you like the first hour and a half.
Yeah.
Like I'm
I-
not saying I like the movie.
I
No,
didn't.
Like
I'd say there's parts of both. I'd say there's parts throughout the movie that I liked and disliked.
Mhm.
Yeah.
It's more my position. But I have something that I want to ask you guys about music. There's a lot of other Miyazaki movies where the music is iconic. Can you
Yeah.
like you can, if I say Spirited Away soundtrack, you guys probably something comes to mind, right? Howl's
the
Moving
piano.
you want me to
Castle.
pull up my Pandora station?
So
Yes.
but the point is, it's like it's memorable. I'm not saying the music in this was
Yep.
good, but I can't remember it. I've seen the movie twice.
I think
cannot
it was
remember it.
modern. It felt modern.
It felt
Yeah.
like, okay, so you know how Western movies used to have soundtracks like Star Wars, Indiana
Mhm.
Jones, Jurassic Park,
Mhm.
right? And
Yeah.
now we just have like generic
Music
soundtrack
Yes.
put into it. Yeah.
A. That's what it felt like to me. But it was
And
Um,
I hate the acapella, dude. I don't like I just feel like so many like bad like Netflix movies
Hmm.
that always end up being political. They always have like the women singing a cappella, and it sounds the same every time. Like when
That
I
too.
like
Was Joe Hisaishi involved in the music, the scoring for this one?
Look that up while I make my next point. That'd be good.
Yeah.
But as far as the music,
Yes, he was.
on the second watch, I realized something, and the problem that I had with the beginning was that another one of my biggest problems was all of the completely silent, pointless moments. Not even so he's walking, from the house down to the little pond or whatever, right?
Mhm.
It's just his footsteps. No music, no like grasshoppers, crickets, birds chirping, no nature sounds, right? And then every once in a while you get like a little bit of a piano, right? As a cue. And that bothered me because it feels like a huge waste of time. I feel like there's more. The movie could have been an hour longer with all the stuff I think he could have put into it, but also you could cut down the beginning of the movie to like a quarter or less of what it is.
Yeah.
But on second viewing, what I realized was there's a specific moment where the music comes in really strong, and it's when he finds the book that his mom left him.
Yes.
Mhm.
Right.
And then they do
And-
nothing.
Then they do nothing with it. God,
That's another one of my
it's-
problems.
So annoying.
Ugh.
I'm like, why? What? Like, that was a cool plot point. What the?
That would have been so cool.
Real quick,
Yeah.
I just want to say the two comments that I made walking out of the theater and my grandpa made walking out of the theater. So I saw it with my dad and grandpa, and my
Mhm.
grandpa was like, gosh, that was written by a 13-year-old.
Yes.
But I told my dad first. I was just like, you can tell an 85-year-old man wrote this. And then my dad was like, Grandpa said it was written by a 13-year-old.
Yeah.
That's hilarious.
Oh my God, it's pretty much the same.
Oh my God.
So yeah, the book, the whole thing with the book was completely wasted. They could have done so much
Yeah.
more with that. But I did
Yeah.
notice that, okay, so if you wanted to interpret it as like he's basically dead inside in the beginning of the movie, and
Mhm.
like they're trying to illustrate that by just having, these little pings of like the world trying to, bring him, or nature trying to bring him back into the
Yeah.
world.
Yeah.
But like he's rejecting it, right?
Yeah.
I can get behind that if that's like the meaning behind it. It goes back into like this is all left up to the viewer to interpret.
That's not
but-
what I interpreted.
Yeah. So, but I did think that like if that was the reasoning behind it, then bringing the music in at that moment was really impactful. But then it turns into a negative too because then they wasted it.
I feel like it was really predictable that his mom turned out to be who she was. Not like
Oh yeah.
I'm meaning like when they were telling the story of when the mom got lost.
Mhm.
I can't remember when exactly it was. Like, I just got out of this freaking movie, and some of the stuff is just like I didn't care about anymore.
Yeah, it is
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
more forgettable.
But he was told that story, I think, by it was the dad that was getting told that story
Yeah.
think,
Oh yeah.
of the mom getting lost once, but
We
then she was
didn't need
found
to
again.
know that. That was more spoon feeding. Like that was already pretty established.
It was really easy to predict because we had already met Hime,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
like Lady Hime, but
Mhm.
the actual name of the character was Himiko.
Yeah.
I was
Right.
just like, so that's the mom, which
Yeah.
I had assumed even just upon first meeting.
Yeah.
And that entire scene also annoyed me because it was really cool and they did nothing with it when you first get introduced to Lady Hime.
Mhm.
Those like the babies going into the world type of thing.
Yeah.
I was just
Yeah.
like, oh, this is kind of a cool plot, and then
Nothing.
it meant nothing.
Mhm.
So
Wha-
on the note of the babies or like the souls going up,
Yeah.
I've got maybe we get into that later because that's just more.
Well,
a
that's
theory about something.
confusing because if that world gives birth to souls, he just murdered everybody. Is it
Maybe that's a
important?
comment on the Japanese birth rate. I don't know.
No. It takes place in Japan, not China.
And also the Parakeet King, I didn't like what he did in the end.
I've got a theory about that
What?
too. Do you want to?
I understand he's the only like understandable character though.
But it was just very like he just rushed to put it together. Like it was very clunky to me.
All right,
But that's not the character's fault. That's the writing's fault.
Yeah. But I mean, it's the character.
So everything that I like about the movie goes back. It still goes back to a negative, basically, because
Yes.
it was. But anyway, so here's my theory for the ending and what the parakeets represent, right? Because going into this, that's another really quick question. Did you guys see any trailers or marketing for this beforehand?
No.
I didn't see a full trailer.
Okay. Well, because in Japan they intentionally didn't market it. They didn't have a poster. I think all they had was like the one that I put on the tier ranking, right?
Yeah, they did that on purpose. They said.
Yeah. And
I saw like a teaser trailer, I think is what it was, honestly.
But
Okay.
in Japan, the trailer was the cover of the book that he based it off of. So
Oh.
it was like
Which-
Japan knew what it was.
which, by the way, is the book that his mom left him.
Mm-hmm. Oh wait!
Um,
Oh, in the movie?
Yeah, it was How Do You Live?
That's cool.
Oh yeah.
I felt like there was an emphasis on it. That's why I also felt like, why did you not do anything?
That
with
is an Easter egg then
Yeah.
that you could have used as a plot point.
I agree. Well, what's that theory about, like, or not theory, but that practice in movies where, like, if you show a gun on the wall, then you have to use it later.
Yes.
Something
Oh,
like
I
that.
know what you're talking about. I don't know the
It's
name of it, but yeah.
it's like if there's a gun in the wall, the question is not if it will be used, but when it will be
Right.
used.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
how the saying goes.
And so the book was an example of that. I think being they showed it, they put a lot of emphasis on it. They didn't do
So
anything
is
with it.
that sloppiness or laziness?
I think it was okay. So let me go back to where I
Is there a
deviated
director's
because
cut? Like,
I
Release the Schneider cut.
no, I think honestly, I think this is the director's cut, and there was a different ending because some of the research that I've been doing about this is that a lot of this movie was based on personal experiences of Miyazaki, and he's trying to tell some veiled story about his experience.
Yeah, he
And-
combined his experience in two separate books together.
And there's a way to do it where it, like, okay, so if I take the parakeets to be or the parakeet king, let's just say that represents so he's, if Miyazaki is the grand uncle or the great uncle, right, whatever,
Mhm.
and he's trying to pass his legacy of directing and writing movies down to somebody like Goro, his son, and that's who he wants to pass it down to, but maybe that person doesn't want to take the mantle.
right.
And so then you have the studio coming in and saying, okay, well, that's fine, we just want money, so we're gonna like whip something together really quick, and that's like the parakeet king, like building the tower up really quickly and sloppily, and like,
Yes.
Yeah.
and then it's like wobbling, and he's like, oh, I don't like this, kill it.
Yes.
Well,
And
and
that's-
honestly, sorry to interrupt, but
No.
the documentary does call to that because he's talking about how it all will inevitably be destroyed.
Yeah.
It's
And
kind of like a morbid thing that he was saying. I was like, well, that's sad.
And I think if again, this is like, if this is how you interpret it, I think that the world getting destroyed at the end is just, not to jump the gun on the ending.
No, we're already into it.
Yeah,
No. We're in the last part.
I think-
for
yeah.
discussion.
We're talking about
but-
the end.
But basically, the world getting destroyed was maybe him saying that I'd rather the whole thing just stop existing than try to put it in the
That's
hands of somebody
exactly what I think it
who's
is.
gonna
Yeah.
like treat it poorly.
Ruin what it is.
So
Yeah.
that's what I think. It's really concerning to see Japan get very modern and meta the way that American films are. Like, I just thought this was very modern, and I felt like I didn't watch a foreign film. I felt like I watched an American film. And
Yeah.
Mahler
Kind of.
always makes a great point where it's like, you can have a message, influence a story, which is good. That's how you create good stories. But the thing is you're blending fiction and reality together, but you then establish new laws within this story. And from there, you continue to a unique story. But at the end, this whole movie was like, oh no, but the message needs to be at the end. Versus logically being like, well, this is introduced, this is real life, this is introduced, it's fiction. In this world that we created, the rising action would make sense if this happened. And they didn't respect their own art. They wanted to get their point out there.
Yeah. And then I guess the Tokyo part, that really didn't bother me as much.
That bothered me a lot.
Like in the end.
Yeah.
The
So
last
from my perspective, that's just like they moved out there because of the like, the
The tragedy.
Tokyo bombings, I think also.
Oh
was
well,
part of
yeah,
that,
and the war.
Yeah.
the war, and so it's just logical that like they would go move back. But that was just like a thrown together thing, and so
I think that was him saying, "Time to grow up.
Mm.
Time to grow up. Reality."
it's
Time to
definitely
forget what the Heron told me that I would eventually forget.
That was even worse. Yeah.
Yeah.
and like compare that to like Spirited Away, where she starts the movie as this cowardly,
Mhm.
like totally dependent on
Whiny.
her parents, whiny,
Yeah.
and then by the end of it, they're like going back to the real world, and she's like, I think I can handle that.
Yeah.
So good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah,
And she's
so
like
good.
telling them what to do, not like in a disrespectful way.
See,
or
the
anything, but, like,
Heron could have told him, "You're gonna forget about this," and maybe when he goes back to his room, he's like,
he pulls it
"And
out
we
of his
went,
pocket.
yes."
Like,
We went back to Tokyo, and he grabs the book and he grips it. You know what I mean? Like,
yes.
I'm not gonna forget this. That would have been a great ending.
Yeah. So okay, it's 5:02. Do you have to jump out?
It's okay. I give Sam a warning.
Oh, thank you.
Okay,
Yeah.
because I've got like a ton of other stuff that I could talk about. Do you want to keep going, Shock, and maybe talk about some of the bigger points before she leaves?
Yeah, I forgot I was gonna mention something, and I totally forgot what it was.
There's a bunch of wasted potential.
Yeah, there's a lot of wasted
I
potential. I feel
really
like
liked-
a good.
Go ahead.
I feel like you didn't want this to be a sequel, which is good. But if I were to make it a sequel, I think when his great uncle asks him to rearrange the blocks, that was the end of the movie.
Right, like the choice, and you don't.
That would be the end, and it
No
would be
way.
a sequel. And here's the thing: you don't need to call it part 2. You don't need to make it a sequel. You know what I mean? Just that should have been the end of the movie, and then even 5 years later, you can have a sequel to it. That would have been awesome.
Can we talk about how he went through? Like, he woke up after Himi was like kidnapped by the parakeets, and finds his great grand uncle or whatever. And has that whole discussion, and then it just cuts to him waking up somewhere else.
So that was in his head.
I hated that. I hated it.
That was definitely in his head. On the second viewing, I confirmed that it was like that was him, like
the stuff from the beginning where he was like dreaming, but it seemed real.
So like there's something. I guess there's something about that world where he could astral project and go talk to that guy, but he still needed to like wake up.
But he was in the real world both of the times that he did it before. And he was in that world.
So I don't know.
See, this movie was what made this movie. What I thought made the beginning good is that the movie wasn't about Mahito. It was actually about Kimiko and the great uncle. You know what I mean? Like that's who the movie's about, because it was like he doesn't like his stepmom. He's upset with his dad, and the Heron is summoning him for something greater,
drawing him.
And I'm like, his mother is looking for him. Oh wait, no, that grand wizard guy, he's looking for him, and I just felt
like they didn't do it proper justice.
No,
but the Heron totally was like. I didn't understand his motives, why he was using like the illusion of the mom as bait. Was it implied that he's just like supposed to be a unfaithful servant to the?
Well, but also at the same time, it could have been that he was ordered to do it.
Yeah, he was a slave to the great uncle.
But he's constantly, you know, he's like, hey, you're being summoned, but he's also like malicious.
Yeah,
and I don't get it.
It was very jarring.
It's like, I'm not going to help you.
Entire thing. It was very,
So, I guess I'm going to rapid fire a couple of stuff, like a couple of things. The things that were really good about the movie were like, obviously the art style looks great. Yeah. Thanks, Genghis. You have the audio clip of Homer Simpson screaming "nerd."
I do. That's another one that I would have had. Nerd.
Get that ready.
I know.
But yeah. So obviously it's a beautiful movie visually. The characters there are some very memorable character designs. Although there's a negative part to that too. I like the music when it's in the movie, but it's not memorable. The Wara Wara were cute, so there's that.
Like they reminded me of just looking at Shock's background with Princess Mononoke. Like it's the spirit world. But
and let's not forget the primary reason that anybody watches Studio Ghibli movies is for the food. The food looked amazing.
Yep.
Well, not the stew, but the bread.
Oh yeah, I didn't think about that, bro.
So the
Yeah,
bread
food
with like
was.
I think it was honey butter and jam that looked so good.
Oh yeah, that was good.
But that was like the only memorable food at all,
Yeah.
and it's
The-
I
weird.
was I was kind of
It was
joking.
lacking.
It was
They
But
could have had like some like cool star fruit stuff. They didn't
Oh, yeah.
venture into that
Yeah.
enough.
there's a ton
But
of
I do
references.
like that the tomatoes were sweet. You know
Oh,
what I
yeah.
mean? That was cool. That was again, it wasn't enough. You know what I mean? They
No.
didn't
Yeah.
dive into the world enough.
There was a ton of references to other Ghibli movies, like the stars falling at the end, call
Mhm.
back to Howl's Moving Castle. There
Yep.
was even like when they were climbing outside of the tower, reminded me of Spirited Away when she's climbing outside the bathhouse.
Yep, I
Um,
got the same vibes from that too.
Yeah, so
And like the
it's
falling
kinda
and
cool. The voice
taking
acting
in
was
all the-
amazing. Oh, so you
Sorry.
guys both saw the dub only, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. And the sub, that's one thing that I have to give it praise for is like they're pretty much identical, the dub and the sub,
Yeah.
which is hard to do.
So I feel like modern times they've gotten a lot better at that. With dubbed, like even with anime, even though I freaking hate Funimation. That
Yeah, dude, seriously.
pisses me off.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
one thing that I didn't understand, how much more time do you have, Tiff?
I'm fine. I'll let you know.
Okay.
Yeah, you let us know when you need to get out of here.
One thing I was very confused about. So they make sure to mention that the pelicans were brought there by the granduncle,
Yes.
Mhm.
and my theory for that is that he brought them there because it's wartime and they can't be having so many souls go up there. You know, maybe that's if that's how you want to think about it, right? Like because people just aren't having kids, so he needs
Yeah.
to like not send
Yeah.
souls to the upper
Okay.
world,
I like
right?
that.
So, but if you notice, the pelicans inside the magical world and outside are the same, but the parakeets turn back into
Change.
regular parakeets outside.
Yeah.
Oh,
And they never explain why the parakeets are there, but they do explain that they basically overpopulated the place and kind of were taking over. And so maybe they weren't supposed to be there. They got in and they just started like
Humping like bunnies.
yeah, basically. And so because of their character design, like how cute they are, if that's going to be a metaphor for something, my thought would be like that's a metaphor for, you know, as if you go back to like Miyazaki's first movie, Nausicaa, the Valley of the Wind, the only real cute character in there was like the little fox cat creature that was on her shoulder.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But then as you keep going, it's almost like the studio is asking for more and more cute marketable stuff to throw into the movie.
Right.
Yeah.
And so if that's a metaphor, my thought would be that it was like Studio Ghibli wanting more and more and more cute stuff so that they can make merch.
And he made them malicious as a way to be like a
Yeah.
commentary towards I don't like this. Like I could see that.
Mm-hmm.
That's my takeaway.
Like in the other world.
Yeah.
My thing with the other world, and so the babies, the spirits going to be born
Yeah.
situation, I already brought that up. And then the parakeets, the two that were bringing Hime into like the other side of the time breach thing that it was, they were saying, is this heaven? Like there's
Right.
references to that world being heaven. I feel like it was a heavy-handed emphasis with just like with the spirits being the babies about to be born, and then is this paradise, is this heaven? Like it was like they overemphasized it, and then in the end it gets fucking destroyed.
Right.
And it's
very confusing.
Yeah. And like his decision, like I'm fine with his decision, not because sorry, get my thoughts
to not take over.
Yes, to not take over. And the reaction from the great grand uncle was, but so you're deciding to go back to this world that has malice and murder. And I was thinking in that moment, I'm like, yes, because it's the real world and you have to deal with real world problems. So I liked the fact that he was deciding to do that. And this world that he's in really had no meaning beyond like it being possibly heaven, which would have actually made it something, but then they just kill it off, and it was very
I
depressing.
assume that it did have a meaning, like mostly the spirit world, the traditional world, it does connect to the real world. That's what
Yeah.
I was just like, well, if you want to go back to reality, if you want the world to be a better place, then you need to balance this
stay.
world. That's
Figure out a way. If like you aren't gonna go, like if you're gonna go back, then there has to be another way. There has to be hope for this world as well.
yeah.
And they just destroyed it.
And so another take, or another possible interpretation of him wanting to go back is like, and I need to get into this talking about the stepmom, but one interpretation is like, he's, again, when he picks up the book, before that he was very dejected and depressed, right? And he saw her walk into the woods, right? And he didn't care. After he finds the book, he reads it, he starts caring about stuff, I guess, right? That's when he actually is like, okay, I'll go help. And then he starts being motivated to do stuff. But like, so in the moment of him being asked to take the mantle, maybe he's saying, I'm going to go back and, live the best life that I can with my new family, instead of trying to, escape to this fantasy world.
Well, and that was why the mom wrote the book. Like she lived it with him when she was young, when she disappeared for that time.
If they would have explained that would have been amazing.
Right.
I didn't get that takeaway.
Like that's how I interpreted that, is like she knew that she was going to die in her future. And so she wrote this book to help him along the path to finding his new mom, her sister, and loving her in the same way as he loves.
That's definitely, and like being okay and accepting death too, and that's a big part.
Yeah.
But that's something I haven't heard before.
I would have liked that, but it didn't happen really.
If they would have just with a little bit of voiceover on the book, be like, hey, I know that you're sad, but some, like his mom reading the book or something like that. I don't know.
Like your father may find someone new, but like, it's okay to let me go. You know that I loved you, type of something.
Yeah, something.
Because I'm just putting that on just from like the conversation before he went back to his world and she went back to hers. Like that's where I picked that up from, is like, okay, she's going to go write the book because she met him when she was younger and she knew that she was his mother, and he was having these issues with, well, she's not my mom, but my dad likes her.
Just talking about this is making the movie way better in my head. And if it was like, if that was told either by showing or telling
in any way beyond just the discussion, like it's great to have a discussion like this, and like you didn't think of that, I did, and so wow, that does help it. But that
stuff like that,
put a little more in the movie for that, because not everyone's going to pick up on that, and that's just me putting it in.
And I'm not really someone who's I don't need things dumbed down for me either, and I can usually pick up on a lot of stuff. So
well, you know what?
It might be my woman's perspective, guys. Like, because I would put
feminine
myself
intuition,
and that's okay to have, but like that's why you should try to spell it out, because it's not just going to be women watching this. It's not just going to be men watching this.
We need to bring films back. We need to talk about films again. We need to bring blogs back. But especially what's interesting though is that we have YouTube. So the people that make art, that make movies, TV shows, video games, you don't have to dumb down things because there's always going to be a YouTube video on it. I don't know why, like even Disney doesn't rely on YouTubers, or air quote the fans, more. It's because they hate the fans, like, spoiler alert. But I hate things being dumbed down too.
Yeah, I think there's a fine line between like doing exposition that's so on the nose, that's like definitely catering to lowest common denominator. There's a fine line between that and like leaving some stuff up to interpretation. And this movie just I think the entire core of it is left up to interpretation, and that means that I think the entire movie was ultimately pointless if you don't like.
And I even think that like with those thoughts that like bringing it up with the mom and everything. Like it just didn't.
Well, it doesn't matter what you interpreted; it was destroyed.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like that very final scene, it's actually kind of a similar scene to Spirited Away in a sense because she went back to the real world. She leaves.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I have
Well,
a fucking
that's a
dragon. I should have
good.
that around my neck. What's wrong with
Haku?
me? Yeah,
Haku.
Yeah,
I have a travel pillow and it's Haku.
That's awesome.
You know what? I'll be right back.
Yeah, go grab it.
So yeah, it is very similar to the end of Spirited Away.
That Spirited Away was like the first like sad ending that
it
I
was
had to
bittersweet, really. Like,
yeah, it
'cause
like was confusing as a kid. It was like hurting to see, and I'm like, why does she have to leave?
it was really cool though because
Yeah, it
you
was.
knew that her house that they were moving into was like right down the road, so she could always go back if she wanted to.
And industrialization was going to destroy her house. Being
Mhm.
built was going to destroy that world eventually, and the spirits would have to go find another place to live, and she would have to live, live there. Like that. It was so cool.
And I think what would have made The Boy and the Heron ending so much better is if when
That's
the world
awesome.
Nice.
I like
You
it.
got, like, the little-
Where'd you get it?
Speaking of cute merch,
Right? Oh
But
yeah.
also, this is what I was thinking of earlier. You can kind of see it.
Oh,
cool.
nice.
This is like a gym shirt that I have.
I like the mask.
very
Yeah,
cool.
That is sick.
so I could have worn that.
Yeah, what would have made the ending better would be if somebody had said something along the lines, if this is the message they're trying to get across, obviously, but if somebody had just said or implied even that if the legacy isn't going to be put into the hands of somebody I trust to make this world good, then I'd rather the legacy not continue at all.
Right.
Oh, but how cool would it have been if they had that cliffhanger ending where he asks him, "Can you arrange the blocks?" And he could have had someone else written like a spin-off or a sequel to it.
I think that okay, that
That's-
would be cool.
That would be
Yeah.
awesome.
Okay, now I was about to totally disagree with you, but that would be cool.
Yeah.
The point I was going to disagree on is that sequels in his movies are non-existent, and I like
Yes.
so like Christopher Nolan does the same thing, with the exception of the Batman movies. But
I guess that's like a trilogy, right?
yeah, I think that was under contract, and
the Joker was supposed to be in it in like all this second one and the third one, and it just didn't work out that way. So it was supposed to be like a
Unfortunately.
sequel. Yeah,
Right.
rest in
Yeah.
peace.
But
But-
Christopher Nolan's regular movies are a full and complete story,
Mhm.
and with resolution, and they're great because of it. And that's
Yep.
another thing. I'll harp all day about Triple R. I don't know if you've seen that, Shock.
Yeah, we watched
but-
it together, but I saw it before then.
That's a movie that does not need a sequel. Like,
No.
Mm-mm. Yeah, it was.
if anything, so in those situations, like, the only way to have a sequel for a movie like that is to introduce more conflict or to
Mhm.
undo the good ending of that movie. So
Yep, that's
But-
yeah. Well, the prequels and sequels are all inherently tragedies.
yeah,
It's like a rule of thumb. I'm not saying because there's always exceptions to the rule. I'm not saying I hate sequels, but like that's the rule. Sequels are tragedies.
Terminator 2.
Yep.
That one is better than the first one.
Oh,
That's
no.
rare.
Rare.
Aliens.
so
You know.
but I do like your thought about like passing, like, if instead of it being a sequel, it's like a continuation, if you will.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
I'm trying to think of an example of when that's it's not quite like a spin-off or a reboot, but like it's within the same world as like an existing
Mhm.
story.
well, just recently there was like
Oh, Pluto.
I don't know about that one. There was a John Wick Netflix thing, I think, that takes
Oh,
place in the same world, but it's not.
Oh yeah, the Continental.
Yeah, I haven't seen that yet though. But yeah, I know what you mean. That would be cool.
All right, guys, I should probably swing over to Sam's.
All right.
Thanks
You
for
know,
having
but-
us, Tiff.
Well, thank you for having me.
Thanks for being
Oh
on.
no, you're welcome.
Conversation was
We had
great.
a blast.
Yeah, this was great. I'm gonna watch it after having like a full night's sleep again, like to give it another chance, but I still don't think I'll enjoy it. I give it like a I didn't hate it.
Oh,
Hate
let's
it.
do that.
Let's rate it. Yeah.
So mine is if you remember my previous tier list, mine's going straight to D. There's just more that I don't like about it than I do.
Yep.
Yeah.
It was ruined. Like whatever I liked about it is ruined.
And really, honestly, the only reason that I'm gonna rewatch it is to give it a fair shake because I'm a
Mhm.
zombie.
Yeah.
And
What
I
about you
wanted,
guys?
yeah.
Where would you rank it?
Yeah, D. It's just not a good. It's just not a good movie.
Yeah, I can't. And especially for the beginning, I was very much, I don't want to say I was bored. Like I was somewhat invested in the story, but the characters, I enjoyed quite a few of them, but I wasn't invested in them the way that I am
Yeah.
with
Okay.
Mononoke, with Spirited Away, Howl's Moving Castle, just like with my S tiers, like those characters, I just adore and
Yeah.
I feel what they're feeling. I just didn't have that. with
Okay.
this.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
That's
D.
cool. You definitely didn't like it the most here, because I think me and Kratos think. Well, we'll get into what we think. We need to let you go. I had one quick question for you. Just to get not too like political, but it's nice to see Japan like destroy Hollywood.
Mhm.
And this movie is doing really, really good, but I
Yep.
just don't know how to view this as a success, because it's not a good movie, and it's disappointing.
It's okay.
Yeah.
The best way I can describe this is after the movie, I went to go look up some reviews,
Mhm.
and after watching 3 or 4 of them, I'm like, did we even see the same movie? Are you?
Yeah.
Was it like critic reviews or just regular people reviews?
It
Both.
was, well, like I would say, like, you know, people like what you guys do, where you're doing videos about this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But like and I guess it just depends on what people put more priority on. Like if you go into a movie and you're just dumb and you don't understand anything to begin with, then like
Well, because
this
I
movie
know
would be great.
that Lethal let me know that him and Ivan got into it on a couple of parts. Like Ivan didn't really like it. Like he doesn't hate it. I'm
Yeah.
gonna go watch his review. I didn't want to color my thoughts on anything.
Well,
before
I haven't
watching
looked
it.
into that.
Yeah.
What did Ivan think of it?
So I haven't watched it
Oh,
yet.
okay.
It's
I need to
on
look
Weebs
into
and
that.
Waifus.
Okay.
But Lethal let me know that him and Ivan like didn't agree. Like Lethal really enjoyed the movie.
Kind of. It's a seed of Japan kind of pulling a playbook from American modernism. It's a bit postmodern in my opinion. We can get into that later, but yeah, do you think this is ultimately like a win for Japan, or do you think this is kind of like the beginning of
I
some
think it's a
downfall?
riding the coattails situation. Like it was successful because Studio.
Say
I
it.
just got tongue tied. Sorry.
Giblets.
Studio Giblets.
Studio Ghibli has such a great track record that people are going to show up for it, especially because of the hype of, is it his last? Is it not his last?
Right.
I think that's where that came into play, and in combination with Hollywood pulling Hollywood bullshit.
So you think it's just like a bitter downfall of a legend, kind of similar to like a quarterback in sports, where he won't leave on a high note. He has to leave tearing an ACL, throwing 3 interceptions.
This is where I think it's going to be so polarizing, because there's
Yeah.
people like us who are like, we had this really high bar going in, and we're expecting a certain thing out of it. But at the end of the day, like I can't think of another one of these movies that I think is worse than this one, right?
Yeah.
But like there's such a huge amount of people who are just consuming product, right? And blindly consuming product, that I think that it's
transferred.
Well, I think that just the appearance of it's going to have the appearance of a success, and there might be people who, it might be one of those things that because of how much positive reviews it's gotten out of the gate,
it's a lot of people are Yeah.
Literally
Yeah.
the only reason I watched is because you guys were wanting to do this, and I
Mhm.
figured I could like hop on. Like, so I saw that like teaser trailer. I feel like I might have seen a full trailer, but I didn't know a good goddamn thing about
Yeah.
the movie and what it was about.
Yeah,
Mhm.
I avoided everything
Yeah.
I could.
So I
Okay.
had basically zero expectations beyond this is Hayao Miyazaki.
No, but
studio
you had high expectations because you love his
because
films.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so there's a difference between it's another conversation for another time, but people will just love the brand name and
Yeah.
blow smoke up it just
Yeah.
because they like the name brand.
Yep.
Versus
Yeah.
we respect his work and we want it to be on par.
I can't imagine this as his final piece of work.
It's not.
Like it makes me sad if
I think there's
is
going to be a
his thing.
sequel.
Yeah.
I'm going to bet money there's going to be a sequel to this movie.
Okay, I'd take that bet because I don't think there
Yeah.
would be.
That's how I do too.
I think there will be another movie, but not a sequel to this.
Oh,
movie.
yeah.
Like
Yeah.
from
Okay.
him. Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe.
And that's the point that you made where people will go for the brand. That's what I was meaning, like where they're transferring it. Like
Yeah.
Marvel is failing, DC is failing type of like
Mhm.
clearly in the box office.
The fans are ringing the alarm, but the normies are still consuming product.
And
Yeah.
exactly.
Mhm.
So they transferred it to something that they also knew and loved that hasn't been destroyed by Disney. I mean, by Hollywood.
Yeah, but we'll
Yeah.
let you go. Sorry to hold
Yeah,
you, but
it's okay. It's okay.
I would say that Japan deserves the benefit of the doubt.
Absolutely.
And we're just going to document our thoughts on it, and maybe we'll see when the next film comes out, and we'll see how,
Yeah.
the state of film is moving forward. So thanks for hanging out with us, Tiff.
Yeah,
Is
thanks
there
for
anything you
having
want
me.
to plug or
Just
channel?
follow my YouTube, Rumble, Twitter, Instagram. I'm around, and I'm hopefully going to put a video out tomorrow or Monday about Alpha Core because
Nice.
I really enjoyed that. And I might
Alright.
start doing kind of like indie comic review stuff.
Ooh, that's
Thinking
good.
about, yeah. I don't know what I'm doing, but I'll figure it out.
Awesome.
Very
Great
Thanks
nice.
again, guys. Have a good
Yep.
night.
I will put her channel in chat, and
Thank you.
yeah, we'll see you on we'll see you tonight on Skin and Max, Tiff.
Yeah. Yep. See ya.
Bye.
Bye. Yeah, so I'm curious if, as we chat about a few more things, I can go for maybe 30, 60 more minutes.
Yeah, me too.
If Static wants to jump on too.
Oh yeah. If you want to hop on, man, I'll send you the link right now.
Lofty loved it. Oh
Lofty
yeah,
loved
Lofty.
it.
Yeah, I met him in Houston.
Oh,
I follow him on Twitter, and
so
there's some things some opinions of his I agree, and some I don't. But
I genuinely do like Lofty. Like,
yeah, me too.
I used to like enjoying his content until more drama. That's a good way. More drama started coming up, but
so like I think really how much you like this movie depends on what you put more priority on, because here, a good example is I went to go see Avatar 2 knowing that the story was going to be a 5-year-old's interpretation, right?
Bro, you're there to see the pretty blue water. I was not expecting to enjoy the story at all.
And even with the lowest of possible bars, I was still like, what is going on? Because like it was, and I would still say I enjoyed the movie because I only went in there for like action, and I never even saw the first one in theaters. But anyways, the story was like, let's go save these people who are captured. We saved them, then we get captured. Then the people they just saved are like, let's go save the people that get captured, and they do that in cycles for like 4 or 5 times.
I would say like because I'm not against like what kind of, I don't want to say message, I'm not trying to get political, but like their goal, the conflict that they wanted to introduce were the humans, right? And the whaler stuff was cringe, but for the most part, the points they were trying to make with like colonialism and the humans like invading the earth, I think the worst part of Avatar 2 was the fact that Earth was like gone. I thought that was
Right.
a big mistake because then that just makes everything more cringy. But
yeah.
the human stuff got in the way of a decent family story when you could have just focused on that. But that's not epic. You know what I mean? It
Yeah.
would have been they forced the epicness at the end when it was
Yeah.
just a decent family movie.
But you see, like, that's an example of a movie where you just have to give whatever the term is, special points for story, and just kind of ignore it and push that off to the side.
Yeah.
And like, it is what it is. Like, you can't grade G.I. Joe against like Schindler's List. So
Yeah.
yeah, they have some stuff in common. But like, so this movie, I think it's going to be polarizing because I was actually paying attention to the reactions when the movie was over the second time around. There was a guy in my row sitting next to his girlfriend or wife or whatever, and she was like, she had this huge beaming smile on her face, and he was like confused and had his eyebrows furrowed.
Yeah.
And he's like, I caught a little bit of what they were saying, and he's like, I don't get. There were certain parts I didn't get, something like that.
Yeah,
And
it's hard because if you're just like, we're gonna get the people that are gonna be like, "Why are you such a hater?" It was a
Right.
pretty movie and it was entertaining, and it's like you're not wrong. Like it's a
That's a
very
good point.
pretty, because that's gonna be a lot of normal people's opinions, and I
Yeah.
don't like fighting with those people because I
So
agree with them.
yeah, that's why I emphasize there's a lot of stuff I like about the movie, and there's a lot of stuff I
Yeah.
dislike about the movie, and there's way more that I dislike. So it doesn't mean because my opinion of the movie is that it was not as good as all of the other ones of the same category. That doesn't mean that there's not good parts of the movie, and I think that's where a lot of debates just get muddled. Is somebody says it's a bad movie, and then somebody comes and says, well, then they might think that person thinks everything about the movie was bad.
Yeah.
So it's not true.
Not true enough. So back to Lofty though, that he liked it. The thing that Lofty does though is he is a bit contrarian, which I don't mean that
Yeah.
in a negative way because
Mhm.
I'm not totally against being contrarian. But the thing is, it's just like anytime you criticize, it's defending mediocrity. He likes to defend mediocrity a lot, where it's like, well, you can't complain about literally everything.
Or play devil's advocate.
Yes, I feel like that's what he's doing with
Yeah.
this film.
Yeah, and it comes back to what you guys were saying too about like respecting a brand and kind of not wanting to say bad things about a brand that you like.
I never understood that. I don't understand how people are like, yeah, I never got that.
Yeah.
I
So
don't
one
know
of the
boys' feelings.
biggest questions that I had, points of confusion of the movie, if you want to get back into Boy and the Heron. Why did the stepmom go into the magical world?
So
why? And then also why? What was her motive for saying that she hated him? I have a theory, but I want to know what you think first.
well,
Very
this is
confusing.
one of the things that isn't spoon-fed to you,
Right.
which I do like. Which is what makes the movie not good is because we have a lot of these puzzle pieces that we're looking at, and we're really excited to see how they fit in the story. To me, it seemed like obviously in traditional like Japanese fashion, she's the younger sister and she was probably jealous of her older sister for whatever reason. And I think she wanted her kid to be born in that world so that her kid can replace the grand uncle. But
Interesting.
that's what I think. I think he wanted her kid to be the god, be the master, to replace the grand uncle, and that he hated him because he looked so much like her sister. And her sister was lost in that world and she died in the real world. So I'm thinking that's why she couldn't be the predecessor to, the grand uncle, is because she actually died. And so she has this hate towards her sister, and her hate towards the grand uncle wants you to be his replacement. Also,
Right.
you look like my sister when she wants to inherit that world.
Right. So was it implied that Mahito was, or was it even said that he was born in that world? And was that like
No,
set up as a prerequisite?
I didn't catch that.
I have a very similar theory, but I think I like yours better.
What's yours?
If the if that is a prerequisite, the fact, the need to be born in that world, I could probably see that. What I was thinking was, so originally Mahito had rejected the summon, right?
Yeah.
So the order of events was, he went and snuck off to the tower, and then his stepmom told him not to go there.
Yeah.
Which I thought to mean that she didn't fully understand I thought she was just like, she was one of the other, she didn't know what it was and was just like, it's generally dangerous, just don't go.
Which is a good twist, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Because she's lying to him. Like, I liked that. That was a good twist.
Yeah, if you interpret it that way. But
Yes.
if so, which is why I think I'm going to lean towards your interpretation. But like the other way I was thinking was, she genuinely didn't want him to go there, and because she sees that place as something bad, right?
Yeah.
And and then what happens is he Mahito straight up tells the Heron he's not going to go with him, and he like tries to shoot that arrow at him, I think.
Yeah, which I love that part when he grabbed the feather. That was so cool.
But then it was a little bit after that where she walks into the forest, and so my thought process was he rejected it. So then the granduncle said, well, I don't have many other alternatives, so so he contacts the stepmom, tells her to come have the son in the world so that her son can be like the, forced to be the new mantle holder, or forced to take over his job, right?
Yeah.
And so if that was the case, then she was it would imply that she wasn't lying to Mahito. She genuinely thought it was dangerous. She was forced to go there. She has to give up her son or child, right? She's forced to give up her child to become the person to take over, and that's why she says she hates him.
Yeah, it's just the fact that it's just Maito is clearly summoned. That's the only reason that I would just disagree with that. But another thing, though, is we don't know which movie was written. Did they change the end?
They did.
Or did
That's
they
what I heard.
change? Yeah, so it's the ending that they changed. So, I mean, that could be what the original script was. Like, it is possible that's originally what they intended. But too much at the end is given to us that I don't see that.
But anyways, I kind of like your interpretation better. But it all goes back to, would the movie be better if they were more clear about what was actually going on with character motives? Because
I think the aunt, right, the stepmom, her motives, in my opinion, were pretty clear, because it's kind of like her over hospitableness to the husband to the widow of her sister.
She was okay, so she was clearly like marrying for money.
Yes.
He was a rich guy, and there's a lot of that gets told visually early in the movie,
and I think very well.
Yeah. And that's the part, those are the parts of the beginning that I would definitely leave in, like the parts where like this gets more into too, like Mahito being very silent, not wanting to speak up for himself. But like when his dad wants to drive him to school in the car, and then all the kids immediately sneer at him because they're like, oh, is this rich kid? What's he doing here? And then like when he goes to sit down, and then they pick a fight with him, right?
Which is weird, because in the book that it was based off of, what's it called? How Will You Live?
Yeah.
The kid was actually like really popular, and it was about it was about 3 kids.
Oh, okay. I never read it.
Yeah, I was trying to get like a synopsis of it, and yeah, that was because so he was inspired by the book. So then I'm trying to look up plot points of it, and really the plot really has nothing to do with the story that he wrote. It was just the letters that were written to him from his mother. So basically, they're like kids. They're popular in school. They're all close friends, and their mother, the father passed away, and he wrote like letters to his son, basically. And it kind of challenges his viewpoint, and like from not being in his life, haunting him and forcing him to grow up. That was kind of the idea that I got from kind of just reading plot points, because I was curious, because I'm like, how do you combine anyway? But
yeah. So his dad being rich, or being well off because he's working for military, basically, right?
a Tokyo businessman, yeah, working for the government.
But I heard there was also, I guess it was a common practice back then of like, there was a term for it that somebody used, where it's like, you basically, if you lose your wife, you like have a kid with like a sibling of your dead wife, so that it like forces a marriage.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So it's like,
that's cool. Man,
it was I forget what it's called, and I don't even remember where I heard it, but I think there was some like cultural practice of doing it that way.
That would make sense.
So more or less a arranged marriage, but she didn't seem to be putting up much.
I think that would. So if I was Japanese and I understood that cultural reference, I would have watched the beginning of the movie knowing that she hated him, the kid, because it's like, okay, well, he's my husband now. I'm now the eldest daughter. My son is the firstborn, the legitimate firstborn, not you.
Yeah,
so that would add a lot of context.
And like, so she clearly, they had some wealth. I guess what was being implied is they had some wealth in the past, but not so much anymore, because like just the scarcity of stuff, like, them bringing a suitcase full of food, like canned goods, and like valuing that stuff so much in that time period.
Well, to protect the stone, like they spent a lot of their fortune investing in knowledge in this world that wasn't physical in the real world. So they definitely laundered their fortune.
Okay, I guess I didn't think about that. Yeah,
that's what I would assume, because remember, he had to build that tower over the stone, and then the stone kept rejecting it. So he probably would have spent a lot of money, and a lot of families died trying to build that thing and got hurt. So that's where I assumed all the money went.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. And there's also another message there about like trying to industrialize nature.
Yeah. Which is most of his films do that.
Yeah. So that's good. But then the dad in general was a huge wasted character, because there's a trope. Okay. The grannies and the dad.
I thought the grannies were underutilized too.
Yeah, so they're drawn in a way. There's 7 of them. It reminds me of the 7 dwarves. And they all have these like unique features. And so there's the dad and the 6 grannies that were still there. And what I want to call this more of what I wish it would have done. Well, the direction that I thought they were going to go with was like, so the dad's character is very much, there's a trope in anime, like the kind of the dumb person who charges into action to save somebody sometimes ends up causing more problems, and maybe has a comeback moment, like thinking like Ganju from Bleach. Just like, they want to be the hero, or like even from Zelda Skyward Sword. Do you remember Groose?
Yeah. Groose.
So he like starts off as kind of antagonistic, but like really just,
and then they get pretty humbled real quick, and then they have to rely on
but like charges into action, tries to be the hero, that kind of thing. And I thought the dad, and that was, I thought that's what the dad was going to, that would have been so cool.
I thought that was cool. I wasn't expecting him to be a character at all, but then he like puts his hat on and the katana, and he's like, looking for my family, and I'm like, whoa, he's an actual character. It's cool.
Yeah, and I thought it would be so cool if him and the other 6 grannies like went into that world. They don't belong there. and like
And
they
they
had
would
gotten
have
like
been they would have turned into some sort of
yeah,
spirits. They
they
would have
would have
each
turned
one.
into something,
Yeah. Oh.
and like oh man, like
They
there was
could
a
have fought
whole
all the parrots, dude. The dad just
dude.
like slicing parakeet's head off.
You're exactly on track with what I was thinking,
I
and like
like it.
they go in there, they don't belong there, and they just complete whole other B plot that would have been so cool.
Dude, no. This is how you fix the film. Oh my god. When they go in there, the world collapse
Hmm.
because someone who's not related to the uncle is in that world. The
Could do.
father could have solely been responsible for the destruction of that world.
Mhm. And so, and that's another plot thread you could go down. Another thing that confused me about the grannies was the little wooden statues and the granny that went with Mahito into the world.
Yes.
My
So that
original
sorry.
my original thought was that she went in there and then she had become young and like her memory got wiped or something, and so she thought she'd been there
Yeah.
forever. Or like it was just like some time dilation thing. Maybe she actually had been there for a long time.
So
Forgot
my
about.
assumption is that she was actually a spiritual guardian that was from that world all along.
Well, she returned to the timeline with his young
Yeah, I
mom.
know. Well, no,
So-
that's because she is his guardian. So she would follow him wherever he would go.
It's possible. But my original thought was that she went in there old, she became young, it like had modified her, and then that would have been another like it was cool that, you know, he figured out who she was, but like that could have been another little side quest to solve, like
Yeah.
convince her that she needs to return to the real world. This isn't her life, right?
Oh, that would have been cool.
But that's not
Well,
what happens.
then-
She just exploded out of his pocket at the end.
Yeah, that was. Oh, did people laugh at that?
Yeah.
No one. Yeah, I guess. Yeah, I
It's
guess.
kind of funny.
But the film's ruined. You know what I mean? It was a very very like Marvel moment where you're like, why did the movie end this way? Cue the laughter.
Right.
Dude, I'm too depressed to laugh. I don't like this ending. Well, I wasn't sad. I was confused. I'm like, what
Right.
is happening? I don't want to laugh when the movie's over and I don't know what's happening.
But yeah,
yeah.
that's even another. I feel like that's a callback to Spirited Away too, where the baby and the,
Oh yeah.
the bird like go back to their normal forms.
It's a shame. It's feels forced. Because
But
that was a great scene.
and like there was this whole missed opportunity with the wooden statues because he was told not to touch them, and then he like nudges one, and I thought that was going to be something
Same.
like, oh, he touches it and then something happens, but nothing. And so
it doesn't make. I don't know. Yeah.
it's another one of those
Nothing
wasted
was-
opportunities. So yeah, the
Yep.
dad with the grannies and then the granny that went with him, they could have played such a bigger role. And then his mom, like it was implied early in the movie by the Heron that his mom is still alive. There's a way that you can save her.
Mhm.
But then they flip it and it's like, oh yeah, that was just a lie.
Well, I think it was more that Maito realized that he doesn't want to bring his mom back. He wants to go back to reality and be responsible. Because it didn't really say that it couldn't happen. They didn't even
Yeah.
try.
Yeah, and so I thought that this was going to be more of a I thought so the fact that the like with the time bending aspect of the movie, I thought there was going to be a possibility for him to actually save his mom.
Mm.
So, but I just like time travel stories in general.
You know, me too. Well, you know what? I was gonna suggest it as a theory, but it was too crazy to ever
Mhm.
think it was realistic.
Mhm.
But what would have been cool is if the stepmom, you know, was trying to have the baby in that world so
Mhm.
that she can go to the door when he's an adult and pull him into that world so that he can directly replace the uncle. I feel like that would have been a cool plan.
Yeah.
And then you could have had a bunch of like anomalies with too many doors opening and people leaving their times. But that would get out of hand quick.
Oh yeah.
It's just a funny idea.
And so speaking of the Heron, there's so much that I dislike about him, but like visually he's amazing. I love his character design.
Yeah, the voice too when he's summoning him and like stalking
Yeah.
him in the first hour, fantastic.
And like just the way that his head pops out of the beak, it's so cool.
Yeah, yeah, cool design.
But like I have a really hard time having any kind of attachment to a character if I don't understand their motives. And the Heron is probably the worst example of it. So I guess something to touch on really quick is they changed the name of the movie The Boy and the Heron for English.
Yeah.
And it was so, and I think the reason why makes sense is because How Do You Live seems like a drama type movie. It doesn't seem very magical.
I think it was a good decision.
Yeah. So for marketing purposes, I get it.
Yeah.
But when you change the name of the movie to be The Boy and the Heron, I would expect those two to be the main characters.
I agree.
And
so I'm a bit in between, right? Where we're like you're really good at like film analysis, and then there are people who just like watch marketing, watch a pretty movie, and don't think anything of it.
Right.
What I do is when I'm watching a movie, I see something and my brain accelerates and go, oh, this could happen. This can happen. And people are like, well, they didn't show you any evidence why this character would have such an arc or this would happen. But I'm like, yeah, but I can imagine it happening and I can get attached to characters I don't know anything about. So I can enjoy a film until it gets to the end and go, wow, they missed so many opportunities. And it makes me really dislike a movie when I enjoyed watching it because I like getting excited for stuff like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know. And so yeah, my expectation with the Heron was that he was either going to be like a partner or a more of an antagonist, and he ended up being kind of both. And I don't understand the reasoning why in the situation.
They needed more scenes because him as an antagonist, I think, was great. And the times they didn't get along were fantastic. And when he helped, they just again, this movie was too big, too long to incorporate any criticisms that we have.
Okay, so from the logical starting point of the Heron is the the assistant of the great uncle, the herald, right? Oh, that's an interesting wordplay. Herald and Heron are pretty close.
Dude, he should have like chased him in that like big library. And he bumps into like a librarian and his name's Harold or Helen. And he'd be like, you're the Heron. And he's like, I don't know what you're talking about.
But
that was funny.
So like similar how like the Silver Surfer is the Herald of Galactus, right? The messenger.
Yeah.
And so if you go from that, because that's basically the only thing that you have to attach to that's solidly explained in the movie, the parts where the Heron is actively like attacking Mahito or like for some reason just I don't the illusion with his mom, I don't understand why that had to be.
Oh, like, when the fire?
No, the when his mom was like laying on the bed and then she melts when he touches her.
Oh yeah.
So like that to me, that's very malicious of the Heron to do. And like I don't the only reasoning for that is like, was that to lure him into the room?
I interpret it as a test from the grand uncle.
You could, but
that's like, how I assumed.
But then the Heron said like, "Oh, why'd you have to touch it? It would have lasted longer if you didn't touch it."
I think he's just being a really good, like, malicious, like villain.
Now, my explanation for his character, if they would have established this in some way, it would have made a lot more sense if he was an unwilling assistant, right?
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of times in the movie where he's like,
I
"You're a brat. I'm not
expected
going to
him
help
to
you."
be too.
Yeah. So he's like he is tasked with doing this thing, but he doesn't want to, right?
Mhm.
But they never established that, and so it's
No.
confusing that so Mahito fixes his beak, and it's kind of a cute moment where he's like, "Aha, I'm going to betray you anyways," and then he's like, "Oh, but can you fix this?" And then they become friends. But the whole friendship between them feels undeserved. Like you said, they need more
Yeah,
scenes.
it doesn't.
They need more scenes. I would have been happy with a 3-hour movie, or even just the same time with like a lot of the beginning cut out.
Yeah, you gotta cut a lot from the beginning. I mean, beautiful. Here's the thing, like it doesn't matter. Like the world is more beautiful than all the walking scenes and going to the bedroom and going to which I don't want to
Right.
criticize those things. I understand people don't like slow burns, right? They're like, this is boring. And I'm like, I get it, but if it's going somewhere,
Right.
it feels rewarding. I like that stuff.
Yeah.
But because so much was introduced at the end, I'm like, well, why'd you waste so much time
Yeah.
when you had so much to introduce in your story?
And they didn't even like they kind of fumbled the entire explanation too at the end. Like they rushed the ending. That's what it felt like. The pacing of this
Oh
movie is
yeah.
just
Yep.
not I don't like it.
That is like my introduction to my video of my review is
Mm,
pacing. This movie has a terrible pacing problem.
I think so.
It adds so much crap to it.
And like I said when we were going over the tier lists, that's definitely something that I'm sensitive to with like with my rankings of stuff, because Princess Mononoke towards like the last third of the movie I feel like drags on. Otherwise,
Mhm.
it would be more rewatchable. Like there's some movies that are just they're too long and drawn out. I can't rewatch them as much.
I like the dragged parts because it really does feel like it feels like a sequel within itself
Mhm.
with the spirit of the forest and
Oh yeah,
the city characters that I like. I get to see more of them and I like it.
like
But I understand the criticism. I'm not saying you're wrong.
I think like the last part with all of the action where they're like trying to transport his head. That's all good.
Mhm.
But I mean like the lead up to that, it's just a lot of really slow. Like when they take the main, I forget his name. They take the main character to the spirit of the forest and he heals him.
Mhm.
I forget.
Yeah, I forgot his
She
name.
like takes him through the
As
water and puts him on the little island.
yeah,
Um,
San takes
I I forget the finer details of that because it's been a while.
as
But
he yeah.
like
I'm really bad with names.
that whole portion of the movie before the action started, that's where that's the pacing problem for me there. But like
Yeah.
Spirited Away, there's some slow moments, but
Mhm.
I like it because it's more of a um like a not calm before the storm, but like um a relief of all
To
of the stuff that you've
me,
been thrown up.
it's actually because usually when you see growth in a movie, you don't
Mm,
have time to actually show the growth. You just show weakness, like a tragedy,
mm,
overcoming, and then the next time they're prepared. But
yeah,
when we see Chihiro making that journey
yeah,
to
that's the
Yubaba's
part.
sisters,
That's the
it's
part.
actually showing her being an adult. She
Yeah.
did that all on her own and she
Mhm.
led her friends. And it just, you actually got to see her maturity in action. And that's, see, again, it is slow. You
Yeah.
don't have to like that scene. I agree. But that's what I appreciate
Yeah.
when slow burns are rewarding in films.
And so like that's that's the slowest part of the movie for me. And it's so like the rowboat leading up to that.
It's slow.
Um
It is slow.
yeah.
As a kid, it bored me for sure.
Like if I'm tired watching that movie, that's where I'm gonna fall asleep.
Yeah.
And then that goes pretty much all the way up to when she meets back up with Haku.
Mhm.
And then you get to like after she makes the bracelet and everything. Or not the bracelet,
The
the hair
seal.
tie.
Oh, yeah, the hair tie.
Yeah. Um but yeah, so that's I think there's pacing like in Miyazaki movies, there's a certain expectation that there's going to be some slower moments that you just want to like sit back and absorb.
Yeah.
And I understand that's what he was going for, but it was dialed up to 12 for
You
this movie.
need to completely change this movie to defend the first hour and a half. Because if it was a simple movie, right? It was just simple, maybe anyway, you know what I mean? If the ending was much more simple, then I would defend the beginning because it is good.
Yeah. So let me see my
Where
list.
would you rate it? I recreated your rankings, I believe, unless I got something wrong.
I said D earlier. Let me see. I think you got that correct. Yeah, it looks correct. So yeah, putting that on D, and
D.
I think we all pretty much put it on D.
I think we're all gonna put it on.
Well,
D,
because
yeah.
even The Wind Rises, I liked the plot about him and his wife. It was kind of a, you know, I think sad endings. Some sad endings are good, and that's one of those examples where like, if you can get emotionally invested in these characters, and it's like just it's a story about some people, and it has a cohesive plot and an ending. And I can't say that about The Boy and the Heron.
Yeah, something that Jeremy and Paul Hadoken argue that I've kind of gotten in on the argument too is what is nihilism?
Right.
So I've always said that nihilism is when the plot of the story doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm.
But a tragedy is when like the overall like themes of the story still hold, but just something sad happened at the end. You know what I mean? Where like Game of Thrones season 1, like at the end, that's a tragedy.
Mm-hmm.
Like you're so much is like being built up,
Yeah.
right? Triumph, and then boom, failed.
So you can have a sad ending that's also satisfying. You can have a happy ending that's unsatisfying, right?
Yes.
And then the other two combinations.
Mm-hmm.
So like, the best. Have you seen Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood?
Not. Oh wait. Yes, Brotherhood. I don't think I finished it though. I gotta finish it.
Well, Brotherhood is the one that follows the manga more closely.
Yes, I haven't seen the OG.
Okay, the OG, it deviates from the manga.
Yeah, I'm aware.
It does towards the beginning. It does a little bit better because Brotherhood kind of rushes it because it was a recreation, and so they kind of accelerated past the stuff because people already knew about it. Mm-hmm. Whereas the first anime that came out kind of lingers on it a little bit more. So, anyways, Brotherhood, in my opinion, is like the most satisfying, and I won't spoil it for you or anybody else, but like it is the most satisfying ending to anything I've ever watched.
I've heard. So,
like the idea of like having a like plot threads wrapped up, that's a lot of what makes stuff satisfying. Mm-hmm. Leaving stuff dangling is not good, even if it's a sad ending or a bittersweet ending, right? Mm-hmm. So like, I don't know, what are movies with sad endings? Like Grave of the Fireflies. Oh, that's
yeah. I didn't know that wasn't directed by Miyazaki.
No. And I think one of the ones that Miyazaki did that wasn't Ghibli was the Lupin the Third movie.
That's crazy.
So yeah, the Venn diagram overlaps, but there's some outliers. But yeah, he what was I saying? Oh yeah, Grave of the Fireflies. I think that's a very, very sad ending. Hard to say if it's satisfying, but like The Notebook, that's a really sad ending.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
But it's like it's a very satisfying ending because of the character growth, and like you discover who these people are, and like the fact that he had been there for her into old age, right? So I think The Notebook is the best example. You can have a sad ending with it that it's also satisfying, and so they could have done that with this, but I didn't see it.
I think he thinks he did. I think they believe that they did.
I think there's just so much subtext that's missing. And pretty much everything goes back to that, because like the only good things that I can say about the movie are me filling in the blanks with what I interpret.
Yeah.
And that's like me giving it the best possible best chance.
That is another subject that I meant to introduce, but we didn't. That is the reason why people who don't like Studio Ghibli don't like them. And there's a really good YouTube video. I forgot the name of the channel, but it was basically the title is called like Studio Ghibli softcore world building versus hardcore world building. And I think that's what I like about Studio Ghibli is that they softly introduce the world to you. They don't explain the world to you, but they think things out where there is a logically correct answer, but you got to rely on fans to interpret it.
And also most of the time it's like, again, I always go back to Spirited Away, but like in that movie, like there's this stuff, the stuff that comes up later in the movie that Chihiro doesn't understand, but like other people in the world are explaining to her, oh yeah, that's not how that works. This is how it works. Like with the seal that Haku swallowed.
Yeah.
And Yubaba's sister was like, oh, that wasn't what that was. It was this. And then there was, and that's the kind of stuff where like you just accept it. You suspend disbelief and you're like, okay, in this world, people can turn into dragons, and there's
but Spirit Away does it good though, because the level of importance that the characters have gradually go up.
Yeah. And you don't really even have to know the full extent of everything that goes on. It's just like there's a bathhouse for spirits to come relax. Okay,
and
I'm good.
You shouldn't. Yeah, good.
I don't need to know about like the radish spirits full background.
No.
But it's such a simple concept that like, why are all of those spirits there? They're coming there to relax. Why is the bathhouse? Like, what's the motivation of all the bathhouse workers? It's all very clear. Like, the guy giving out the tags is like, I'm not going to give you that tag, right?
Yeah.
Like these kind of things are very easy. They don't have to spell it out for you, and they're very easy to just fill in the blanks.
Yep.
But where it's not ambiguous is like the very obvious, like I said earlier with Chihiro, where she's at the end. It's a direct contrast to the beginning where she's leaving the world and she's completely changed character, right? And so it's so easy to just draw the correct conclusion. And I think that's really what I was trying to get at earlier, is like you can leave stuff ambiguous, but there's still like the expected conclusion that the writer director wants you to try to go for. Yeah,
exactly. You still need to end your film.
With this one, you almost need like a full explanation from the director to say what is going on.
It doesn't matter what the explanation is. Like, you're not going to like it. Like, there's nothing to retain.
I am liking it more, again, because some of the stuff that you brought up is like, some of the other interpretations that you guys had, it's making me like it a little bit more. But I'm wondering if maybe this movie is going to be one of those things that grows on me over time. Like Age of Ultron is a good example. So like,
I was always confused about people who hated Age of Ultron. I was just like, I liked it. Like, I don't know why everyone hated it.
It was good.
So much.
It just, I don't think it was as good as the first one when it came out.
No way. We can rank Avenger films. Like, I don't even really even have. Yeah, no. Age of Ultron's nowhere on that list.
But like, as the years have gone on, the amount of stuff that was established in Age of Ultron has it makes Age of Ultron so much better as a movie because of the stuff that came later. And with this movie, like you said, maybe there will be a sequel, and if there is a sequel and it makes this movie better by association, then I can get behind that.
It could maybe his mom like reaches out to him and they're like, we need to rebuild the world, which is literally like the Age of Ultron arc, right? Because Maito would be responsible for the fate of the world because he rejected responsibility, which is good. There's a lot of good stories of boys rejecting responsibility and
Yep.
becoming men at the end, which is, you know, that would totally fix the movie for me.
Yeah. Okay, so what other stuff do I have on my list? There's a lot of the, like you were talking about, the hard versus soft magic systems. In this movie though, there was certain things that I feel like needed more explanation, like why did the feather affect the heron? Why did him ripping the feather affect the heron? Or
That didn't bother me, honestly. I thought that was cool and I thought it made sense.
so like the when he puts it on the arrow and it like, you know, it becomes like a super arrow and it like
well, remember
headshot.
every time he grabbed the feathers, they would disappear.
That was something I missed on the first watching, and I caught it the second time. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I noticed it right away because I thought so when he
said it.
He said it's like where'd the feathers go?
Yeah.
And I actually noticed it. That's what I really liked. He lost it before he even said where'd the feathers go, because I was like, yo, where'd the feathers go? And then he says it. I'm like, oh, well, I noticed it. You didn't have to say it. But no, I think it explained that. And that was just kind of like,
but then why was he able to hold on to that one?
Oh, yeah, you're right.
And there's like that thing in particular, it seemed like
he did get lucky. That was the idea.
It seemed like it was after the heron realized he was missing it, it like prevented him from turning fully back into a heron. Or was it that he got the hole poked in his beak?
It was the hole in the beak. That was why.
But like when he was trying to escape the arrow, he couldn't turn into a heron either. Or maybe
that's a good point. But he does mention that's my specific feather.
Yeah, like number 7 can flight feather.
Yeah, and he it doesn't, he got lucky, and it doesn't try to hide the fact that he got lucky, because a lot of times he's just very brave, right? I remember he walks into the room with all the parrots.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, we're gonna eat you. And he's like, oh, really? You're gonna eat me? And like, you know, he's arrogant.
Right.
And I guess that is more of a character flaw, right? Because they don't really do anything with it. He's a bit of a Mary Sue in a way. Like, I didn't like that.
Yeah, I'm just now realizing that too, is like, he
overcomes.
Would you say he really ever has a challenge?
So, no, he doesn't ever really have a challenge. Everything is pretty handed to him, but
cutting the fish guts open, maybe.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, there you go. That was a good like growing up moment, like be a man. Yeah. But I assumed it was his mother helping him the whole time. That's why I think it really flown under the radar to me, because I was just like, oh, dude, his mom is alive. His mom's trying to contact him. I don't know who this wizard is.
Right.
But I really thought it was his mom helping him the whole time. Right. So by the end of the movie, I totally forgot how much of a Mary Sue he was.
And then the other thing that I thought was mostly, again, unexplained was like the stone. I get that it was like a something that came from space.
Yeah.
Or, you know, the thing they built the tower around. But they never really explained what exactly it was. Like Gal mentioned, she was like, you know, interpreted it as being heaven, or I guess like a portal to heaven, because even in the movie his young mom said like, oh yeah, all worlds have this thing there.
Yeah,
it's like the intersection point of all worlds or something.
Mm-hmm.
But like if they would have explained why it was important to maintain it, then I could have
Mhm.
cared more about it being destroyed for sure.
That's the point, because as I'm watching the movie, I didn't need an explanation of the stone or the
Yeah,
world
I think
because
they
I
did good
thought
enough.
well, because I thought that the world would be important, but
Mhm.
because it turns out that it's actually not important, all those questions are very much valid. Oh, well,
Yeah.
where'd it come from? What is it? Because obviously it's not important. It should have been destroyed, because there's
Yeah.
too much like force. It's there's a lot of forced symbolism
Yeah.
that breaks the curtain for me.
Mhm. Yeah. Um, and so there's probably more I could talk about, but I think we hit that pretty good.
I
The
think
the
so
fantasy
too.
world to me also was very underwhelming compared to other fantasy world Miyazaki movies,
I think the introduction to the fantasy world got me excited.
like the
So,
library.
yeah, the library got me excited. The spirits in the boat, the parrots, the souls. I think I
Yeah.
was just like, well, when they were at Kiriko's house, I
Mhm.
was like, whoa, this world's awesome. Like the
Yeah, she,
movie
like
just started, and I was
she
like,
lives in a giant boat.
yeah, but I was just like, "Dude, this is awesome. This is cool." Like, the movie's getting started, and then I'm like, "Wait, like, dear, how long has it been?" And I looked at my phone. I'm like, "It's been an hour and a
Yeah.
half. Like, the
Yeah,
movie
exactly.
just started."
Yeah.
So, I don't have criticisms of the world. Again, it's just because the end was so rushed and they spent too much time in the beginning, but I think the world is introduced well, and it did capture my attention.
Yeah, so the the library I definitely like. I think if the movie would have flipped the amount of time they spent at the beginning versus in the world, then it would
Yeah,
have been better.
exactly. Yep.
But like you know, when you are in the magical world, right? The
Mhm.
majority of the time, so he goes there, there's the graveyard scene, which that's completely unexplained. He goes through the gate.
Oh, I was gonna bring that up. That was the stupidest scene that was never explained. Like that
Yeah.
needs an explanation.
They
Why
never go
did
back
you?
to it.
I can't even think of a corporate symbolism. Like, does the gate represent Studio Ghibli? Like, there's no actual metal symbolism for it. It doesn't matter in the story. It was just a total waste of
Yeah.
15 minutes.
And like again, it's another example of if you show it, make sure that it has some payoff later.
Hmm.
Um, what else? The food, um, like I thought it was cool that she had to be the one to kill the fish because the other spirits couldn't kill.
Hmm.
That was cool. But then also like there's some missing connection between so like obviously the spirits have to, or maybe not obviously, but the spirits are eating. Maybe they're not supposed to be eating,
We
but
don't
they
know
want to.
enough about the
Yeah,
spirits. It's like like what you said with Spirited Away. They're spirits. They come to the spa.
yeah,
We don't know why they're there. We don't
yeah.
know why they can't eat and what their goal is. None of that is explained. They
Right.
don't even
And
try to.
it wouldn't be an issue if they hadn't said like, "Oh, yeah, my main job is to kill the fish and give the food to them," and then they don't really elaborate why that's important. Why is that a
So
necessity in the world?
my theory of what I thought it was gonna be is a bit like I can't. How do you say Day of the Dead again in Spanish? Huelos Muertos or whatever.
The holiday?
Yeah,
Dia de los Muertos?
yeah, that.
Mhm.
I thought it was gonna be like some sort of like purgatory, where if you are in this world, you need to find a family member in the real world before you can be born or get back home. And these spirits were lost and they gave up. That was kind of like my kind of guess and theory of could have been like the
Yeah.
gist of this world.
I thought there was a lot of you know, implications that the world itself was a trial for people.
Yeah.
Um but like yeah, the food, you know,
I like the
nourish.
sweet tomato. Like I feel like
Yeah.
the creativity, the fire's still on. They just didn't utilize it correctly. It was just a poorly attempted movie. But
Yeah.
all the aspects of a Studio Ghibli film are there.
Mhm.
Just poorly optimized.
So, and then the other thing was like the connection between the food and the warawara of like, you know, do they just need nourishment so they can mature and become souls in the real world, or you go to the real world? I mean, and
Yeah.
I thought there was some kind of a very specific thing that she mentioned that was like, I don't know, they were implying that they hadn't been able to do it for a while, and um, this certain specific thing about the fish was letting them do it. It was all just very ambiguous. I didn't get that.
Yeah, I didn't get that either.
I'm looking through my list. Non-satisfying ending. We've definitely like. What's the
Yeah.
moral?
Well, what's up?
What's the moral of the movie?
Oh, moral of the movie. This is Miyazaki's swan song, and it's a very bitter one.
Hmm.
That's what I think it is. And even the, blowing smoke up of anything that's a name brand kind of reviewers are really getting off to the fact, okay, this is a goodbye to blah 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 and this. And I'm just like, how do you say that with just such like enthusiasm?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's what I think it is. I think it was a movie. This movie was made for him, and it's like, yeah, we can tell, and
Yeah.
it tarnishes his legacy. I felt like when I walked out of that theater, I was like, dude, this is a big blemish on his legacy. Like,
You know, I actually had a kind of a far out theory of, you know, the entire movie itself being him basically saying, like, I can make whatever and people are going to consume it. Watch.
yeah, yeah, no, yeah,
Which would be funny if that was the case. And, you know,
no, in a way, I think more respectively, like respectfully, yeah, I feel like those were the intentions behind
because
the
the
movie.
lack of marketing, especially, would lead me to believe like he's just like, all right, guys, hold my beer. Check this out. Not even going to market this. It's just going to be like, here's a movie by me, and it's, you know, Studio Ghibli and Miyazaki movie.
Yeah,
That's all you need to know. And we're just going to make the plot completely incoherent and watch people just rave about it.
yeah. Ponyo was advertised like crazy,
Yeah.
but the Wind's Gone was not.
Right.
So I mean, I believe, I guess, I mean, he doesn't need to you don't have to advertise when you're like
Yeah.
a built name like this, but
Yep.
I think you're right, but
It's kind
the
of a
fact
far
that
out
it's
theory.
not marketing alone doesn't inherently prove it.
Yeah.
I think more of the interviews do.
Okay. I haven't watched any of those.
Yeah, he just they're not really interviews. It's just like news articles that interviewed him and quote him. So those aren't really reliable either.
Right. So I think the last thing that I have written down that's worth talking about is the scar, and like when
Oh yeah.
he hits his head with the rock. My only interpretation of that is that he was trying to make it look worse than it was, or make it look like he fell down and hit his head. Because then later he doesn't, like, he refuses to tell his dad. He like tells his dad he fell down, right?
Yeah.
So the only thing I can think he wasn't trying to make like, if it was to show his show the other kids, or like make it look worse for the kids, that doesn't make any sense. To make it look like, I don't know, what's your interpretation? Why do you think he did it?
I think he did it because he hates himself. I think it was purely like, I'm unhappy
Okay.
and I
can see that.
wanted to inflict this on myself because I deserve it.
And so that was the third thing, because the one that makes the most sense logically is like
That.
he was trying to make it look like he fell down and hit his head.
But I just don't think that matches
No.
his motives as a character.
Yeah. And so like if he's doing it, because another thing that I heard, and I don't know if this was coming from a legitimate source or people just filling in their own reasoning for it, was that it was supposed to be Miyazaki having a metaphor for self-harm. And so that kind of makes sense with what you were saying, was like he hates himself, he's gonna hit himself with a rock, and maybe he just didn't want to go back to school. He wasn't
that too. Yes, I think I did kind of think that too. Like he didn't want to go to school.
Because like it would be even worse if his dad went in the next day with him and like make it a big fuss. The kids would hate him even more.
Yep. But I feel like maybe that got cut out or something because the movie's too long.
But towards the end, he references it, like right at the end when he was talking about the tower.
Yeah.
And he was like, he points out his scar and he mentions that it represents his malice.
Yeah. But I don't like that. I feel like that's a translation thing. I don't know.
I thought I saw that in both.
Well, it's still, but like the subtitles are still translated into English.
So was it some kind of a message to say that that like represents his weakness as a human, the fact that he's corrupted and that he doesn't feel like he can take on the mantle? Maybe that's what he was trying to say.
I have some good explanations for that because that happens in One Piece too, right? Where Luffy gives himself a scar, and then Jags is like, "You didn't earn that scar. You're a coward." Because it's a very Japanese theme where you're a coward, you harm yourself, but at the same time, you're brave if you spill your guts out.
Yeah, that's a lot of cultural subtext that if you don't know. So I think more and more that I think about it, this movie was made for Japanese audiences, and
it is.
Especially since it didn't come out in America right away either. So
yeah,
he definitely prioritized Japan.
I wish I mentioned this in the beginning. They sold Japan, like the first weekend, sold 42 million tickets.
Yeah.
That is insane.
You know what? Now I'm curious. After this, I think I'm going to go watch some reviews by like maybe Japanese reviewers, because it's almost like he did a lot of stuff intentionally to go over the heads of American audiences.
Yeah, I think so too.
And that's coming from me, and I know a lot of like Japanese history and customs and whatnot. So like, yeah, that's.
I know some too, but I still think a good movie. I still have a theory that like a good movie is a good movie.
Yeah.
Where like I don't have to understand like a lot of subtext to enjoy a good film, because it'd be like, you don't, not everything needs to be explained to you. But
yeah,
I think
it's
you're
just
right,
like it's when the entire like resolution of the story, or like the moral of the story, if that's all up to somebody filling in the blank of knowing, like inserting what they think the character's motivations are based on certain things that are shown, that are all based on like cultural things, right?
Yeah.
Then I guess the entire ending of the movie is hard to comprehend if you don't have that as a foundation. That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, I had a really interesting person in my Twitter replied to my first tweet where I tweeted, the boy and the heron was disappointing.
Yeah.
I think he was from Bengal.
Oh yeah.
So he was somewhere in Asia. But his point was, I'll just read it because I don't want to expose him
Go
or
for it.
anything. So anyway, so he says, anyway, so I tweet The Boy and the Heron was kind of disappointing. And he says, that's because you imagine too much yourself, which is very funny to be like, you're too creative. Anyway,
Hmm.
you imagined too much yourself. I don't blame you. I blame the company. Anyway, he was blaming it. He was blaming me trying to fill in the blanks and imagine a movie. He was blaming trailers for it, in which I'm like, there were no trailers for it.
Right.
So he's basically saying like, just like eat what's in front of you. Like, don't
Yeah.
think outside the box. It was one of those answers, but he does kind of go in to say, this is the way Miyazaki wanted it. Let's respect it. And then
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean I have to agree that it's good.
Yes, exactly. Exactly.
I like that because, like, you know, the artist's intention is definitely something, like, you know, even YouTubers who just, you know, there's always a conflict of, do you make content that gets views or do you make content that you want to make?
Yeah.
Right? And like, there's a middle ground, and you know, a lot of creators will do kind of a mix of all three. Or like,
I definitely a mix is good.
so like, ideally you want to do stuff you're interested that also gets views, but maybe there's, you know, every once in a while you do something that's just for views, every once in a while you do something that gets
Yeah.
less views but something you're passionate about,
Mm-hmm.
and you keep it like that. But like, especially if you're doing it for a living. So
Yeah.
but knowing your audience, the thing is, like, usually your audience is your audience because they liked the stuff that you said to begin with. And so
Yeah.
there shouldn't be a need to like deviate. And that's with Miyazaki too, is like, I'm a fan of Miyazaki because of all the stuff that he created.
Mm-hmm.
And then comparing this movie to all of that other stuff, that's the main reason why I don't like this movie.
Mm-hmm.
But if I was going to give it an absolute ranking, it'd be like so like I ranked it D on the tier maker, but I'd probably give it, after this conversation, I'd probably give it a 6 out of 10.
Yeah, I was gonna say 6 too.
I had it at a 5, but then, you know, all of the complex potential meaning behind stuff.
The
I think
hard
that,
thing though is that when a movie has a lot of potential, it makes me really hate it.
Yep.
You know what I mean? That's what's hard.
and that could be something what that guy was commenting about too. Like, you imagine all the things that it could be, and that makes it seem worse to you that it wasn't that.
And I just think that's really, I don't know how to explain it, dude. That's just such a like uncreative,
Yeah.
like fascistic answer. Like, stop being creative. That's what I hear.
Yeah, so like, a movie can be good, and you can also have opinions on how, like, the thing that you would have done to make it better.
Yeah.
Right. And there's plenty of examples of that, but like, yeah, I respect it for what it is. There's definitely worse movies out there. So
So in 2 years from now, or maybe next week, right? Maybe you're hanging out with friends. Maybe you're watching a YouTube show, and they go, "Oh, The Boy and the Heron, it made money. I guess people liked it." What's your reactions? Are you gonna be like, "Yeah, it was good," or like, well, you know what I mean?
I'm
Like,
curious what the drop off is on this, because
I think it's gonna be huge.
I saw it on the 7th, which I think technically was 2 days before. It was a midnight. It was a late night showing on Thursday the 7th at Alamo. And I think the actual first day was supposed to be Friday or Saturday the 9th. Hold on,
Oh, no, it was the 8th, wasn't it? I saw it.
Well, the 8th was like when you traditionally do like the midnight views. Hold on, let me click the release date.
I think it's on the 8th. So I think I saw it on the 9th.
Yeah. Okay. So the release date says December 8th.
Mm-hmm.
And
They
normally
don't do midnight showings anymore, though.
But yeah, and so the 8th is, or I don't know, the release date is usually the first day that it's available broadly. And so I feel like, so I saw it on the 7th. It was a it was like at least a full 24 hours advance screening because it
Mhm.
was at. There were showings even before, but like I think ours started at 9:15, so I think there was showings going all the way back to the afternoon. But like that's why I'm curious what the drop off is because everybody who likes Miyazaki will
Mhm.
probably have seen it by now.
Yeah, that's you know, that's how IPs work, right?
Yeah.
Where like a big corporation can buy an IP, you know, they buy the
Ah,
rights to make a Spider-Man movie and everyone went to go see it. Well, yeah, because you
yeah.
bought their IP and he's popular. It in the week one is gonna be your fans.
Yeah.
So when you buy a property, week one is the audience that you bought. Week
Yep.
two is going to be the general public. And word of mouth always
Hmm.
trumps advertisement.
Yeah.
So I'm interested because on the internet, you are going to see more positive opinions than negative opinions.
Yeah.
That's kind of just the nature of social media, right? They usually promote positive comments and they deboost negative comments,
Hmm.
especially Instagram and Facebook and stuff. But um there were people in my theater who were kind of murmuring about it. And then like
Yeah.
my parents didn't like it. And I'm just wondering a lot of normal people, the normal people's word of mouth is much more powerful than the
Right.
internet's. So that's why I
And
think there is going to be a drop off.
my general impression of the type of people that were really enjoying the movie were people who put a lot more stake in visual
Yeah.
things and um like the would you say that the overall tone of this movie is serious?
Yes.
Okay. So
Because it's not whimsical or
yeah,
charming. It's a very serious Studio Ghibli movie.
right. And so and there's some funny moments, there's some whimsical magical moments, right? But like um it's primarily
It's
that's
it's
what
really
I
the maids. The maids make you smile and laugh. That's it.
yeah. And I'd say the parakeets, but like
Oh yeah,
the
I love the
so
parakeets.
the parakeet king towards the end, people were laughing like when he was following them, but I was like, this isn't it's not a funny moment.
Oh, they
It's like,
laughed at that?
yeah.
Oh
They're
no.
like, oh, how quirky the parakeet king is like
Oh
following them.
no. I was actually a bit interested because
Yeah,
I like the Parakeet King, and I was just
he's a
like,
good
wow,
character. Dave
he's
Bautista is a great.
yeah, he's a great character. I was just like, whoa, this dude is taking matters into his own hands because
Yeah,
the
and so
leaders of this world are juggling his
that's
land.
why I really think that most normie audiences are going to be misinterpreting the tone of the movie because that was a serious moment to me. That was like him about to like ruin everything,
Yeah.
right? Because like what was leading up to that was he went and dropped off Lady Hime, and he's
Mhm.
like, we can't let this go. Mahito broke the rules, and then the granduncle was like, just let it slide. I'm trying to get him to be my successor. And then he walks away, and he's like, we can't stand for this.
Mhm.
We're gonna have to take matters into our own hands. And so like that was his mistrust of the judgment of the granduncle.
Yeah.
And so like at that point I saw him as more antagonistic for sure than even
Yeah.
than even how much he already was. But there was a whole other thing about his character that I thought um I was waiting for a reveal about who the Parakeet King was too, because I thought that could have been his brother,
Mhm.
the granduncle's brother, Mahito's grandfather, like transformed into a
Oh,
parakeet
that
or
would
something.
have been cool.
But there we go, like thinking about other things that would have been better,
Yeah.
and like yeah, like a situation like that would be like he's what maybe the younger brother, and he got stuck with you know being the lesser king to the god.
Yeah, what I was thinking what would happen is I was still in my mind. I was just like, this is going to be a cliffhanger ending. Like there's going to be a sequel. And so when he has the meeting with the grand uncle and he's like, you need to, trust me. And he's like, all right, yes, sir. I'll trust you. And I thought maybe like the world would open up a bit and he would reluctantly have to support Maito in being, the new god creator kind of thing, right? And there would be some tension between basically the locals and the new kind of foreign, advisor that keeps this world together. Like I kind of thought it would be something like that, but no, he's just an allegory for it's my company. I'm gonna destroy it. Like he was,
And I'm wondering what made you expect it to be a sequel. Was it mostly the pacing and the fact that it hadn't?
Yes.
Okay, so
Pacing. I was just like, oh my goodness, this is great. So much is being introduced, and the movie's almost over. There has to be a sequel. Like I just, there's no doubt in my mind. As again, I enjoyed the movie to the end. And me imagining too much in air quotes is why I enjoyed the movie. And I'm like, ooh, what's gonna happen next? So that's how I am.
Yeah, for me, I was like the idea of having a sequel was not even in the cards. I never crossed my mind because that's never been. They've never had a sequel to any other movie. So
well, the more I doubted it, the more I was just like, oh well, this has to be the exception to the rule. He's gonna do a sequel. I was, being hopeful.
Yeah.
So, dude, I'm looking at the box offices right now. We really got the movie late. Wow. Japan saw it in July. And then where did Korea go? Korea got it in October. That's crazy. So, France. Okay, so opening for America was 13 million. And then South Korea was almost 5. France was almost 5, and then everywhere else is really low. That's pretty crazy. Yeah, we didn't get till December. Japan saw it in July, and Korea and France didn't even see it until November.
Wow.
That is a long time. I didn't know this came out in July.
I wonder if that's just because of how long the voice acting took.
Maybe. Yeah, look at I didn't even notice this. The Office Box Mojo, the description of, or maybe I should share my screen. Maybe we should do that. There we go.
To wrap my point, though,
right.
I think most normie audiences are gonna like it, because they misinterpret the tone.
Maybe.
What's the genre of this movie? Adventure, animation, drama, family, fantasy, right? Not comedy.
I guess I don't know what family means. I guess family could mean comedy.
Does it mean it's for families, or is it about a family? Could go either way.
Know what? In America, family means dumb, stupid jokes, but in Japan, family means wholesome. It's about a family. So no, it does not say comedy.
And that's my point. I think many people were expecting it to be just because of how many people were laughing at seemingly inappropriate times.
That's crazy. Wow.
And I know Gal had the same experience, and maybe it just kind of depends on who was in the theater. But
I went to a luxury theater, so maybe everyone fell asleep. Just kidding. I don't know how you could fall asleep, even though people say it's slow, which it is slow, but I'm just saying, it's enjoyable to watch.
How can you fall asleep when you have so much rage?
Right. But look at the description that they even give it. They even call it a semi-autobiographical movie, which is funny. This is post advertisement. because there was no budget for advertisement for this movie, but there's so much advertisement after the movie to explain that it's an semi-autobiography. And this is just this like American Hollywood stuff that I've just never thought I would see with Japan, and it concerns me.
Yeah. I still think that this is better than what Hollywood turns out.
Oh, no, yeah. I concluded it with when Tiff left. Japan gets the benefit of the doubt. Absolutely. I think I'm going to, what's it called? Succeed. And when someone says Boy and the Heron made money, Japan did it again, I'm going to go, yes, Japan did it again. It's a success. What do you think?
I think in general, not necessarily Japan, but like you're seeing a lot of foreign movies that are just knocking it out of the park because whenever there's a void of quality, people find other stuff and they fill in the void. So like,
it's technically an import. America used to import culture. Now that we domestically don't have culture, we're importing it.
So like R, love that movie, Indian movie.
Great movie.
Godzilla just came out.
Oh gosh, I need to make a review on that.
And like, look at other like, okay, Squid Game, that was a South Korean thing, right?
Yep. Well, that was another funny one where it was just like all of a sudden the creator wanted to like, whoa, people are misinterpreting it. Yeah, that's another conversation.
I never actually finished watching that one, but around to that. But like in general, I think there's more and more people are being drawn to foreign media because America has just been fumbling for years. Not telling good stories for one reason or another, prioritizing other stuff instead of telling good stories, basically.
And the economy is not good enough for indie films to really make a comeback yet. Hopefully it does get better and we'll see another like awakening of indie films.
Yeah, that too. I think I guess if you just want to broaden it to like anything that isn't Hollywood, because even like the Pooh, Blood and Honey thing that came out.
Yeah. Did you see that?
No, I didn't, but and then, like,
I kind of want to.
Cocaine Bear, like these are just crazy things you'd never see come out of Hollywood, but they gain this traction because there's a void. Right? People want good stuff and like they're gonna find it.
Yep. So last question, unless you wanted to bring up anything else.
Go ahead.
I mean, this is really its own stream, this question, but I wanted to see what you thought. Do you know the song REM or the band?
The band, yeah. Which song?
Losing My Religion.
The One Hit Wonder.
Yep, the One Hit Wonder. Yeah, they got 2 songs. They got 3.
I need to go look at the lyrics really quick.
But anyway, so they had a song, right? And I think bloggers and people back then interpreted the song, and I forgot what the interpretation was, but when I read that and then I listened to the song again, I was like, oh, that makes sense.
Right.
And then the band came out and was just like, it's really just a simple song about losing faith. Like there's not that much depth into this song. But then he concludes saying that's the thing about art is once the public interprets it a certain way, the artist can no longer explain his art. The people explain the art. He's like, so I have another personal like reason behind why I made the song. And he said, like, I'm not going to ever disclose that because it doesn't matter how I interpret it. All my fans interpret this way. Therefore, that is the factual interpretation of it. And what do you think about that when it comes to like movies and stuff?
I guess in any art form, and you can argue over what counts as art, but really the the medium can be anything. Art's just an expression.
Yeah,
You're expressing something or another through a medium. If you want
Yep.
to be the most as general as possible. So video games can be art.
I agree.
So like, it's just where do you draw the line? Is a video game that's a product of hundreds of thousands of office dwellers still art? I don't know. Depends. But like Call of Duty, right?
Yeah.
It's hard to justify that. But like with
Yeah.
with movies, so as far as like what is the quote correct interpretation of something, right? The
Yeah.
best thing that comes to mind is Inception. Again, I'll go back to that because it has a very ambiguous ending, but the director said he said, well, if you pay attention, there's actually a clue that lets you know what the real ending is. Right. But like letting people still theorize and speculate about it is good. But like, I think, if you're trying to convey a message, if you're trying to convey something and people are misinterpreting it, then in a way that's kind of like bastardizing what you've done. And if to me to say like, oh well, if the fans want to interpret it one way, that's fine. It means you probably just don't care about your original intent as much.
Yeah.
Because if it means something to somebody, then that is fine, and that's perfectly okay. But if that's not what you intended, you should at least be vocal about that.
Yeah.
Like, no, you're getting the wrong thing from it. But at the same time, you can, if it means something to you, then you're free to, if it makes you feel better, right?
Yeah.
So
I think that's gonna reflect on the next 2 weeks on how this movie does domestically.
Yeah.
And then I mean, I'm gonna maybe follow up on this to see like, is this a movie that was made for Japan? Is it being misinterpreted, or did word of mouth not do good enough job to get people to see this more in the States?
Well, interestingly enough, my word of mouth ended up selling 2 or 3 more tickets.
What would you tell them? Like,
well, okay. So coming out of the movie, me and my 2 friends were like, we would not see this again. Like we have no motivation to watch this movie again. I decided to give it a second chance because the first time I watched it, there were 3, and you know how I mentioned there were some people laughing. There was 3 specific people sitting right next to us that were constantly cackling maniacally. It was so taking us out of the moment to where we couldn't even laugh at the parts that were funny.
You can't do this with this kind of movie, man.
And it was like, somebody says something completely neutral, giggle. 2 seconds later, giggle. It was,
oh god,
it was constant background noise, and I was like, I need to give this movie a completely second chance. I also want to see if the dub kind of illustrated stuff better, and so I went and saw it yesterday.
Oh yeah, what do you prefer, dub or sub? Not in general, just this film.
Yeah, so generally I prefer subtitled stuff, but
Same.
The dub, it's so close I can't even say they're almost identical, but probably the dub because the voice acting, I like the voice actors.
They're fantastic, man. Robert Pattinson,
Yeah.
Mark Hamill did good. Florence Pugh was the mom, right?
Yeah, so
Yeah,
that'd probably be the
actors.
tiebreaker.
Yeah, very nice.
Plus, in this case, I guess it's more a visual experience, so
yes,
not having to read the subtitles is helpful there.
That's true.
But yeah, it's interesting because initially, this was right after. Okay, so you were in the comments on the stream I did with Dermy and Gal about Godzilla, and I went to go see this movie right after that stream.
Oh.
And when I got back from it, because we were talking about it in the group chat, I was like immediately just like, do not recommend.
Yeah.
And then as the conversation went on and you kind of came in too, I was like, you know what, you should go see it because
Yeah.
I want to know what your perspective is on it, and so we can discuss it. So
Yep.
um
I told a lot of people to go see it too.
yeah.
I was just like, I need more perspectives on this because I have a really big one.
Yep.
And I think our perspectives are leaning to be pretty true because big Ghibli fans have a lot of agreements on what they disagree with in the movie, and then a lot of normal people are kind of like, not their best one, but I enjoyed it. I think you're gonna get a lot of that.
Do you watch Critical Drinker?
Yeah, I like Critical.
All right. I think the nail in the coffin either way is going to be if he does a video on this.
Ooh, oh my
Um,
god, yes.
But I met him in Houston at Anime Matsuri, and he said that he hadn't seen a lot of the other ones, and so
he's not gonna do it.
But the fact that it's coming at a time when there's like a Godzilla and all this other stuff, it might be beneficial because, or in line with, how do I say this? It might be good video for him to make because it's in the conversation right now.
So I had two thoughts in my head while you were mentioning that because Critical Drinker is the most influential YouTuber right now.
As far as movie reviews,
I
TV.
think because even if he only has like 1 million subs, so many people react to him.
Yeah. He's the reason why I watched Triple R, and like,
really,
yeah, I trust his opinion, and like I like his positive reviews more than his negative ones for that reason. 'Cause he's like he's propping up movies that I might not have ever heard about that are amazing.
Yep, he's really good at that. So my thought was, when it comes to reviewing this film, I feel like there's too much history behind Studio Ghibli. To even want a normal person's perspective. What's up?
You just blew my mind because I started thinking about something else. Are you a Blink-182 fan?
Yeah.
Did you see One More Time music video?
Is that one of the newer ones?
Yeah.
No.
All right. You need to do a blind reaction to that.
Oh, you want to do it right now, or should we go to Kick and do
Well,
it? Maybe.
I think this is maybe another thing, but like,
yeah, I'm done.
My point of bringing that up is you have to understand that band's history for that song to be an emotional hit.
Yes, I very much know Blink's history. I'm definitely a Tom DeLonge guy, which is why, like, when he left, I didn't quite like the new stuff.
So if you know everything that they've been through and you have nostalgia for their old music videos, that song will mean something completely different to you than some people.
Holy crap!
Don't know. Okay, so when I first watched it, and I had my reaction to it, and then I was watching other people's reactions to it, and they're like, "Oh yeah, I heard that this song was getting a lot of views, so we're gonna do a reaction to this today." I'm not really a big fan of Blink-182, and they watch it and they're like commenting on stuff, and it's very surface level, right?
Yeah.
And like they're totally missing everything.
Ooh.
And
really curious.
Yeah, just you need to go into it blind, and this would be live reaction. I'll do it with you. But maybe we can make that a separate thing.
We can make all right. I'll wait for you. Then we'll do that.
All
right.
Yeah, if you maybe just do another stream right now, but we can end this one. Basically, yeah. But it reminded me of that because if you understand a lot of Miyazaki's history, this movie is probably going to mean something completely different to you.
Yes. And I guess it but then once I started thinking that, I thought, maybe it is good to get a neutral perspective just to see if the movie is enjoyable on its own, but it's much too confusing and not enough payoff. There is no payoff really. The movie just abruptly ends. So I'm just like, you know what? Maybe it would be perfect if Drinker, who isn't too familiar with Studio Ghibli, reviewing this movie,
Yeah,
but
because
he would get a lot of
even if he went and did research and
yeah.
he'd probably do, knowing that it's semi autobiographical, he'd probably want to know that information, context, if he was going to do a full review of it. But I could reach out to
Yeah.
him on Twitter and see if he's if that's on his radar at all, because that might be a very controversial video if he has any opinion similar to ours.
Yes.
Which I think he would, just knowing the stuff that he cares about in movies, because he puts a lot of emphasis on character development too.
Yep.
And
it's all over the place. There is no
like,
arc.
Like character driven story, stuff like that.
No, character wise, this movie has a beginning and an end. There's no middle.
Yeah, so I'll see. And it would be interesting to see if it's on his radar. If not, then I'll but yeah, just the fact that he said for sure that he doesn't really watch anime in general, and so I recommended Brotherhood to him as just a show to get into. But I can't remember. He said that maybe he's seen a couple Ghibli movies, but the memory's foggy.
Yeah, he is. I feel like he's pretty good when it comes to like people giving him a backlog, because whenever he does like a Drinker Suggest, it's like a year-old movie. He's like, someone recommended this to me, and I'm like, dude, this is a year-old movie. Like,
yeah,
you really got to it when you were able to get to it,
Yeah,
I think that's kind of cool.
So coming from him would be really interesting, since he's not necessarily a Miyazaki super fan.
I was doubting it, but the more I think about it, dude, you're 100% right.
So like, even with the context, if he did the research, the context of the, his history,
yeah,
I think I'm very curious to see his thoughts on the movie, because he's all of the good things to say are we talked about, he'd probably agree with.
Yeah.
So but yeah, that's pretty much all I got.
Same here. Yeah, we're gonna end the stream right here. Do you want to plug some stuff, my man?
No, I don't really.
No?
I've been coming on some other people's streams, but doing the like review type stuff. But no, just I'm on Twitter.
Yep, I put his Twitter in the description. So give green-haired anti-liberal a follow on Twitter as well. Give Kratos a follow. He's a cool dude, up and coming star. He has really cool perspectives. So
Thanks.
Yeah, man. Thank you. Thanks for joining me. I will have a video. I'm gonna have a video of like my full actual review on this. So even though
looking forward to it.
Sweet. Anything else you want to add?
No, it was a great discussion. Thanks for having me.